Chapter 4197. The first is more. In the second floor of the Terra ruins, the chance he got was too great. After the Terra sword spirit took him away, in order to improve his strength, those magic drugs are like swords without money. The belly is stuffed, and until now, there is a lot of medicinal power in Jian Wushuang's body. These magic drugs are those that increase the strength of Jian Wushuang's divine power, and those who improve Jian Wushuang's understanding of the laws of the universe, but most of the magic drugs are to promote the fusion of Jian Wushuang's eighth rule. As long as the digestive properties of the divine medicine in the divine body are combined with the power of Wu Daohe, I should break through the fifth level and dominate. It should not take long. Jian Wushuang made a decision in his heart, and then said hello to Leng Rushuang. The figure swept away, striding toward Wudao River. Wudao River, riverside location. An old man with a short stature and two long beards on his mouth is lying on a soft bed leaning back and forth. Next to him, a female disciple of the Palace of Life is smirking and pinching his shoulders. But, Master Healing, do you still like the blood jade coral I sent? The female disciple of the Temple of Life said with a smile. I can barely get through. Healing said, waving his hand at will. At this moment he was lying with his golden sword, his eyes narrowed, and his expression was enjoyable. Where else was the miserable look of being half-bullied by Jian Wushuang before? Then, Lord Healing, can I enter Han Dao now to enlighten the law? The female disciple was affirmed by Healing, and was immediately excited, and asked with a look of excitement. For you to be so clever and sensible, you can help me for another 3 days. You will be comfortable with me, and you will naturally be able to go in, said Master Healing leisurely. Yes. Suddenly, the female disciple of the Temple of Life shook hands more and more quickly. Comfortable. Healing sighed in his heart. This is the correct way for him to open his master. What kind of ghost operation was that guy named Jian Wushuang 1,000 years ago? The period of repression by Jian Wushuang was simply unbearable. In his long life, he was the greatest shame. Fortunately, the sword Wushuang, who killed Qian Dao, heard that he was dispatched out. It is estimated that he will not return in a short time. Thinking of this, Healing smiled. If he could, he would never want to see Jian Wushuang again in his life. At this time. Well, Healing, you will enjoy it. A strange voice revealed a familiar voice, which suddenly sounded in Healing's ear. Suddenly Healing froze all over. He looked back blankly, and saw a figure that he never wanted to see again in his life, staring at him with a smile in his mouth. The sword unparalleled to kill the 1,000 swords. Suddenly Healing climbed up from the soft bed with both hands and feet, screamed in horror, and then jumped into Wudao River. What's going on? The female disciple of Life Temple looked stunned. In the Temple of Life, the highly respected Lord Healing was even frightened to flee? She looked back abruptly, and saw a young man with black hair and black, standing with a smile on the edge of the river. Jian Wushuang? The female disciple frowned. Jian Wushuang has a good reputation in the Temple of Life. At the beginning, the battle with the king of Jiujie in the Proving Ground was a famous Zhenjing temple. Most of the disciples in the Temple of Life knew Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly towards her, then stepped on it, and immediately shot into Wudao River. Wu Daohe is the deepest. Healing hugged his waist and hid behind a boulder. He slightly stretched his head. A pair of small triangular eyes murmured and looked around. Suddenly he was patted on the shoulder. Immediately, the voice that sounded like a nightmare to him, with a joke, rang again in his ear. Master Healing, what are you looking at? Healing stiffened, shivered, and looked back stiffly. Sure enough, the figure was standing quietly behind him. Jiang Wushuang, you have no end? What do you want to do this time? Healing's face changed, and he stretched out his short hand, opened the hand with Jian Wushuang on his shoulder, and couldn't hold back his heart roared angrily. Jian Wushuang did not care, smiled slightly and replied, This is not to trouble Lord Healing again, help me break through. What? Break through? Didn't you just break through? Why did you break through? Healing stared at him with an unbelievable glance at Jian Wushuang, then stepped forward, and immediately slipped forward. No, no, this guy is coming to squeeze me again, he has to leave here to avoid the limelight first. The thoughts in He Ling's head turned sharply, and he immediately made up his mind to avoid the limelight. Running and running, he suddenly found that he seemed to be stepping back. What's going on? He Ling was puzzled, and then he felt that his shoulder was caught by a big hand. Come on, Lord He Ling. A loud laugh sounded behind him, and the next moment, he heard Jian Wushuang smiling and said, Suppression. Huh? Suddenly, a stone steel with repressive power descended from the sky, crushing him severely. Ah! Damn swords matchless. He Ling shouted miserably, and then turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang, shaking with vigor. Jian Wushuang, are you a devil? Master He Ling, I promise, this is the last time. Jian Wushuang arched his hand at him with a smile, then sat down slowly, closing his eyes. Huh! A swordman cut it, and immediately cut the river spirit into 2 pieces. A strong regular breath permeated. Jian Wushuang's breakthrough began. In the depths of the universe, the stars are shining, and the stars are shining. The top forces stand here, forming a posture of juxtaposition. The Taishu star field is located in the deep central position of the universe. As the name implies, you can know that this Taishu star field belongs to the Taishu temple. At this moment, there are 7 white temples built in a separate space in Taishu starfield. Each of these 7 white temples is extremely solemn and sacred, with its own badge. The 7th temple is a golden wisteria flower. The 7th temple is so towering. A long stone ladder is straight up. This stone ladder is not spacious. On the contrary, it is very narrow and full of oppression. See Lord of the Vice Hall. The 2 ultimate masters responsible for guarding the stone ladder, holding swords and shields, saluted to an old man with white hair. Can the Lord be in the main hall? Bai Fuzuan asked with a gloomy expression covering his right face. The slap of the supreme blood wave is formed by the aggregation of supreme divine power, which is so easy to eliminate. Return to the deputy hallmaster. Lord Hallmaster has returned from the ancient sky and is waiting for you in the hall. 2 ultimate masters returned. Chapter 4198. Second more. Okay. Bai Fu Supreme nodded his head, without using his divine power, and stepped down the stone ladder step by step. After a moment, Bai Fu Supreme walked to the top of the stone ladder, where a strange red attic was built. Opening the door of the loft, there was no light in the spacious loft. A skinny old man was sitting cross-legged in the first place in the loft, with most of his face hidden in the darkness. The lord of the palace. Bai Fu supremely saluted. Bai Fu, what's wrong with your face? A husky voice came from the skinny old man's mouth. Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, a flash of humiliation flashed in his eyes, and gritted his teeth, saying, The Temple Master, all this is from the Blood Wave Supreme of the Temple of Life. Blood Wave? The skinny old man gave a light sigh, and was slightly surprised. Blood Wave, I know, he is a good person in the Supreme, how can he act on you? Did you offend him? Bai Fu Supreme heard the words, and suddenly a spite of resentment appeared on his face, and he said, Dear Lord, you don't know. The attitude of the people in the Temple of Life is really arrogant, and we don't put our 2 virtual temple in our eyes. Suddenly, Bai Fu Supreme said something about what he experienced in the Temple of Life. How arrogant and embarrassing the Palace of Life in his mouth is, it is fundamentally different from actual experience. The skinny old man listened silently, without a reply. After Bai Fu Supreme said, he shook his head and said, Okay, I know about this, you can step back. Bai Fuzuan heard anxious on his face and quickly asked, Dear Lord, can we just forget it? Before he finished speaking, the skinny old man narrowed his eyes and interrupted, I said I knew, did you not hear me clearly? When Bai Fu Supreme heard his words silent, he arched and said, Then Bai Fu will retreat first. After that, Bai Fu Supreme turned and walked out of the hall step by step. It's just that his face suddenly turned more gloomy and violent after turning around. A moment later, the attic fell into silence. The skinny old man raised his head, and suddenly sighed into a dark void, sighing, "The Lord of the Ice Palace, what shall we do next?" Alas! I saw a twist in the void, a 7 to 8-year-old silver-haired child, the figure condensed out of thin air. The child was about 7 or 8 years old and had red lips and white teeth. However, he had strangely growing silver-haired silver eyebrows, and his eyes showed maturity that did not meet his age. No one would have imagined that this handsome and cute child was the owner of the first temple of the Taishu Shrine, Bingyu Supreme. This white floating speech, let us add fuel and vinegar for the time being, not to mention that the Supreme Lord of the Life Shrine is an ancient figure of the same period as the Lord Emperor. Why did he dare to offend? He can come back alive, and he has already been lucky. The silver-haired child shook his head with a sneer, and then his eyes fell on the skinny old man's face, and he said, "Jiokun, you vice the Lord heard that you chose it? Your vision is not very good this time." The skinny old man sighed softly when he heard the words, and replied, "In addition to adding some oil and vinegar, Bai Fu is actually better." After a pause, the skinny old man turned sharply and continued to ask, "The Lord of the Ice Palace, but Bai Fu is right to say a little bit. Is it true that the matter of the Son of God? Otherwise, what else do you want?" Bingyu Extreme shook his head and said, "The race of the nations is about to be held. It is said that this time, the adult will distribute 10 seats in the universe and choose 10 people. Listening to his preaching, our top priority now is to secure a place for our Taishu temple among the 10 seats. Other things are trivial compared to this." "What? 10 seats?" The skinny old man was startled and disappointed. Last time, did the adult hand out only 7 seats? Why was there so much this time? Bingyu Supreme heard a deep groan and said, "When I was in Shinkonglu, I heard others say that he is like that adult. This time, I will choose 3 ultimate masters with good talents in the universe. So, this time I heard only 3 more seats. Bingao Temple Lord, then the Son of God is dead, we are too empty of the temple. Isn't it uncompetitive for those 3 seats that are ultimately dominated?" The skinny old man thought for a while and frowned. Bingyu Supreme heard a slight smile and said with a smile, "Rest assured, our God Emperor has already made arrangements for those who will run for the ultimate seat. The Son of God himself is used to substitute." "Oh!" The skinny old man seemed to remember something, and suddenly raised his eyes. His eyes rose sharply by 3 inches. "Might the Lord Emperor intend to release the prisoner dragon?" Bingyu Supreme heard a mysterious smile and did not answer. At the same time, not only the Taishu Temple, but the top forces in the universe, such as the Great Sun God Kingdom and the Great Feng God Kingdom, all received news of the death of Tianjiao, who was sent to the ruins of Tai Luo. After some investigation, a name called Jiang Wushuang broke into their eyes. Defengshan, the Great Prince's house. A young man with a very handsome face wearing a purple python suit and staring up and down, standing in front of a railing. Holding a black light mirror in his hand, the picture reflected in the black light mirror is the moment when Jian Wushuang beheaded and killed the 3 princes. With a sad face on his face, he murmured to himself, "My dear third brother, telling you not to go to the ruins of Tai Luo, you just want to go, now you are all right, you died in the hands of others, why are you don't listen to advice? Why? You obviously should have died in my hands." The young man talked and laughed abruptly. His handsome face was full of pleasure. After a moment, he calmed down and looked down into the Shuangguang mirror. The picture of Jian Wushuang beheading and killing the 3 princes, with a smirk, said, "Jian Wushuang? Good, thank you for helping me to get rid of the third brother, so I decided to kill you." The voice fell down. The piece of mysterious mirror was suddenly torn and fragmented. The young man released his hand and raised his eyes to look at the unknown and distant direction, with a cold smile on the corner of his mouth. The Temple of Life, the 4th mountain, and the River of Enlightenment. The sword unparalleled to kill Qindao. Damn sword unparalleled. Let me go. I'm going to fight you. Jian Wushuang, are you able to kill me and try again? A sword flashed. Wu Dao River calmed down. Chapter 4199. The first is more. Sword warriors. Jian Wushuang. I tell you, you are in a big deal. It's over, you're over. I'm going to sue Gaver Supreme. I want to tell them you crushed me. Sword unparalleled. You are about to be kicked out of the Temple of Life. Ha ha ha. Ha. A swordmang split again. Wu Daohe fell into silence again. The disciples of the Life Shrine on the banks of the river beside the river, when they saw this scene, couldn't help laughing. At the beginning, they were quite worried whether Jian Wushuang would make any trouble by doing this. As a result, when they found that the river spirit was beheaded, not only did it not matter, but the rules in the river became stronger. After that, he went with sword unparalleled. At the bottom of the Dao River, Jian Wu sat cross-legged, closed his eyes tightly, and a strong, full-bodied breath of law entangled him layer by layer and was absorbed by the sword. In the sword deity's body, the eighth rule of imprint began to appear gradually and gradually extended at an extremely slow speed. The integration of each rule will be more difficult than once, and time will be longer than once. Jian Wushuang has already made a long-term retreat. This time, Jian Wushuang did not devour any Dao fruit that would improve the speed of the fusion rule. At first, Tai Luo Jianling controlled his body. In order to quickly improve his strength, every potion was poured into his stomach like candy. The medicinal properties in the body are too strong, and the impurities in it must be removed first. Dominating the fifth level is to break the penultimate level of the Supreme, so this breakthrough is extremely important. Qi Jian Wushuang must not allow himself to have any medicinal impurities remaining. Time flies, the sea changes. In a blink of an eye, 10,000 years have passed. In this 10,000 years, the Life Shrine has flooded into groups of special creatures, creating legend after story. The story, which belongs to Jian Wushuang, fades gradually. Enlighten the river spirit in the river. It has already given up scolding, just like a dead body without emotion. Let the sword unparalleled squeeze. The next day, a small whirlpool suddenly appeared on the dark river in Wudao, Hanoi. With the appearance of this small vortex, the water of Wudao River suddenly became boiling, and the rich rules hidden in the river water became chaotic instantly. What happened? Damn! Who is disturbing me to break through? This Wudao River is always good. How could it suddenly become like this? Instantly, countless figures rushed out of Wudao River, suspended in the void. Among them, a tall man with a burly figure was facing the whirlpool. His face complexion was low and he shouted, "Junk! Brother Magic Wind, what's wrong?" Suddenly, a large group of disciples of Life Shrine rushed towards the tall man. This tall, burly man is called Lord of the Wind, and the fifth-level peak is the Master of Life. He entered the Shrine of Life 8,000 years ago. He has a level of creatures of more than 800 times. Among the special lives, the one with the most potential talent. Therefore, he has a lot of prestige in the new batch of disciples of Life Shrine, and he is the first person in the realm of ultimate domination. Someone is in the Wudao River, disturbing the rules, said the Lord of the Wind, not so good-looking. He was already one step behind, and he wanted to merge the ninth rule and break through to the ultimate level. The result was just now. The emergence of the vortex directly sucked all the rules of Wudao from the river, causing him to impact the ultimate. Failure to dominate the realm. He was furious to the extreme at the moment. Who dares to disturb Brother Demon Wind? Who doesn't know Brother Devil Wind is about to break through the ultimate master and even come to trouble? The new disciples of the Temple of Life shouted in indignation. Are all of the people in Wudao River coming out? Demon Wind Master asked with a dark expression. A new disciple took a glance at the figure standing in the void and quickly replied, Brother Demon Wind, all the people in the Dao River have come out. Is it? The Demon Wind Master looked down and saw that the vortex in Wudao River, like a black hole, sucked out all the regular breath in Wudao River and continued to expand at a speed visible to the naked eye. So what is this? Lord of the Wind said with his chin, pointing to the vortex. The disciples of the surrounding Life Shrine looked at each other and frowned. For nearly 10,000 years, they remember that only they entered Wudao. Brother Demon Wind, I see. There is indeed one other person who hasn't come out in the Wudao River. Suddenly, a round-faced disciple shouted. Who is it? Demon Wind Master and others looked at the round-faced disciple one after another. At the same time, the Lord of the Demon Wind made up his mind even more. He must give a good look to those who have disrupted the atmosphere of the rules in the Wudao River and hurt him. He is confident that he is an invincible person under the ultimate realm, and the ultimate master in the Palace of Life will never come to this Dao River. The disciple with round face was watched by so many people he couldn't help feeling timid, wiped the sweat on his forehead, and whispered back, Brother Devil Wind, I remember this in the Tao River, and a fellow named Jian Wushuang is retreating. Sword unparalleled? Everyone heard the words and looked at each other. Frightened, and the wind is dominated by frowns. The name of Jian Wushuang, he has heard that when he first came to the Temple of Life, he had heard many old people in the palace say that how talented Jian Wushuang is and how powerful his combat power is. The fourth level dominates the realm, and the enemy ultimately dominates. However, the Lord of the Magic Wind sneered at it. He didn't believe in any sword saver, he could dominate the final with the strength of the fourth level. In his opinion, Jian Wushuang was demonized, and these were all passed on to him. He also asked the old people in these temples, which sword warriors specifically dominated the battle, and the old people in the life temples are dumb, and can only say in a verbal way, swords Wu Shuang and Ji King robbers battle in the trial ground. Here let the magic wind dominate, this is even more disdainful. Proving ground? That is to suppress the cultivation of two people at the same level, can it be regarded as a battle with the ultimate master? Wait for the sword Wushuang to come out, I'd like to be taught. How strong is this rumored, the first genius of the shrine? The magic wind dominated Linghen. Chapter 4200. Second more. In his opinion, Jian Wushuang is only the fourth level master. Even if this breakthrough is successful, he becomes the fifth level master. It will not be his opponent. Time passed slowly, and the vortex grew larger and larger, like a black hole that devoured the stars, and it was terrifying. The Demon Wind Master and others did not leave, but quietly sat on their knees beside the river of Wudao River, waiting for Jian Wushuang's exit. The day passed. 2 days have passed. In the blink of an eye, the time passed 2 years. Enlighten the Dao River at this moment has been surrounded by people. They are full of anger, staring at the turbulent vortex in the Godao River. Since the appearance of this vortex, the regular atmosphere in Wudao River has become a mess, and as much as possible has been sucked away by this vortex. They have not practiced in this Wudao River at all. Therefore, they are now accumulating a belly of fire and want to vent. Rumble! Finally, one day 2 years later, the entire surface of the Wudao River began to boil violently, as if boiling water boiled up, and large fists swelled up. Suddenly, it seemed as if there were some terrifying monsters coming out of Wudao River. Jian Wushuang is coming out. Jian Wushuang is finally coming out, it really makes me wait. Apologize. Jian Wushuang must apologize like us. Many new disciples of the Temple of Life shouted on the banks of the Min River. Suddenly, the demon wind dominated, even under the crowd of stars, and the moon slowly stood up straight, looking at Wu Dao with a gloomy expression. At this moment, Wu Daohe is at the bottom. A huge rock covered with waterweed suddenly shook. This boulder suddenly opened a crack. Click, click, click. Immediately afterwards, the cracks became more and more, and at last a loud noise blew up the boulder completely, exposing one of them sitting cross-legged, the stern figure with black hair and black hair. Fifth grade dominates. Has finally become. A low, indifferent voice came from the mouth of the black figure. Next moment, the figure in black slowly raised his head and opened his eyes. Suddenly, the two gods flashed like lightning in the night, flashing from his eyes. I have become stronger. Wu Jianwushuang murmured to himself. He could feel that after he digested the magic drug in the body, the abundant divine power would almost burst his body. Wu Jianso has an illusion. Now, as if he raised his hands and throws his feet, he can squeeze a star and break a galaxy. Master Healing, thank you again this time. Wu Jianso looked towards the distance, a pair of unlovable lovers, sitting on the ground paralyzed, smiling with the eyes staring at the river spirit. Don't talk to me, I just want to be quiet. He Ling waved his hands weakly. Wu Jianshuang heard the words and couldn't help but smile. Master He Ling, then you take a break and I will go first. Jian Wushuang arched his hand at him. For 10,000 years, he should go out and have a look. The next moment, Jian Wushuang stepped on his right foot, and the whole man rose into the sky. Ha! A golden light rushed out of Godao Hanoi. Sword warriors! He finally came out. Suddenly, countless cold hums sounded. The Lord of the Devil Wind narrowed his eyes immediately, stepped on his feet, and swept towards the sword unparalleled. You are the sword unparalleled? He stood in front of Jian Wushuang, looked at Jian Wushuang up and down, and asked with poor eyes. Jian Wushuang's expression was quite strange. Why did so many people surround themselves as soon as they came out? Although confused, Jian Wushuang didn't think much, politely arched back and said, Is there anything wrong? Did you know that because you are alone, it leads to the chaos of Hanoi's rules, and we can't cultivate anymore? The Lord of the Wind asked. Oh, that's embarrassing. Jian Wushuang replied, probably at the last moment of his breakthrough. He didn't notice the intensity, which led to too much regular breath. After saying that, Jian Wushuang swept away. 10,000 years of retreat made Jian Wushuang helpless. I looked at the back of Jian Wushuang's departure, and the expression of Demon Wind Master suddenly became gloomy. Apologize is over? Magic Wind dominated Han. For his supporters, those new disciples who are new to the Shrine of Life are even more eloquent. Why is there such a rude person in the world? Can't go, you have to leave something at the price. Well, because he is alone, so many of us are unable to practice, can it be easily revealed with an apology? Yes, we must compensate for our losses. Their voices were not concealed deliberately, so they all reached Jian Wushuang's ears. Wu Jian has no footsteps. He frowned, and looked back at the disciples of the New Life Shrine, and said lightly, How do you want to compensate? Suddenly, these disciples of the newly increased Life Shrine couldn't help looking at each other. In my opinion, this sword Wushuang is a soft persimmon. They were all happy, they did not expect that Jian Wushuang would speak so well, and they actually promised compensation. There were still some fearful feelings in Sun Yuan's heart, and all of them disappeared immediately. I want 10,000 universe source stones. I want a magic potion. I want a rule treasure. They shouted in rush. He was dominated by the demon wind, and a slight contempt was raised on his face. It seems that this sword is unparalleled, but that's it. Quiet. He pressed his hand down. Suddenly, the noisy crowd quieted down. The demon wind master nodded, quite satisfied with his prestige. Jian Wushuang, when I first came to this life shrine, I heard people say that you are the first genius of this life shrine, but I don't believe it, I want to teach you. Demon wind dominated looking at Xiang Jianshuang, and Pai Xiaoro did not smile. I didn't wait for Jian Wushuang to talk back. He smiled freely and continued, Jian Wushuang, don't say I bully you. Look at the situation where you just broke through the 5th grade, I will let you do it first. Jian Wushuang heard the words, and his expression was strange for a while. Now, he is afraid that he is comparable to the Supreme King of the 9 Kings of Calamity, and he dare not say that he will let him do it first. Let him do it? Oh, are you sure? Jian Wushuang blinked. Well, I speak to the magic wind, and I always tell you that one trick is to make you a trick. Is there still a fake? The magic wind dominated and heard a rather unpleasant snort, saying, Sword Wushuang, I promise you that if I lose, all these compensations will be written off, how about it? Wu Jianshuang heard a faint and then glanced over the faces of the supporters dominated by the magic wind, raising his eyebrows and asking, You all agree with him? Chapter 4201. The first is more. Of course. Brother Devil Wind said what it is. Yes, as long as you can beat Brother Devil Wind, our compensation will be gone. The New Life Shrine disciples who dominated the horse head with the demon wind are shouting openly, loyal to the demon wind. Wu Jian Wushuang nodded his head, and finally fixed his eyes on the Lord of the Wind, and sighed, "Come on. Bring it on." The demon wind dominated his breasts, looked unshakably, and looked at Jian Wushuang. Wu Jianshou shook his head, controlled his strength, carefully extended a finger, and headed towards the point where the magic wind dominated. "Well? Jian Wushuang, are you looking down on me? Please use your full strength." The demon wind master looked at Jian Wushuang's soft finger, and two thick eyebrows were immediately raised, said a little displeasedly. However, he did not wait for him to finish. "Tap that finger and gently tap it on the chest dominated by the demon wind." "Huh!" Suddenly, an explosion exploded, and the entire fourth mountain seemed to collapse, shaking for a while. Under this finger, the world is eclipsed, a scene of world destruction. "Aye!" The demon wind dominated the expression with a terrible expression. Before he could say a word, the whole man fell back fiercely and smashed a deep pit of nearly 100 feet on the ground. He saw that his body was on the verge of collapse, and it was under this finger that he was almost killed. Suddenly, the entire river of Wudao was silent. Everyone seemed to be locked in time, opened his mouth and looked at Jian Wushuang dully. This is too fierce, right? Not at the same level." Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He had already tried his best to control the power, just because he was afraid that he would kill the magic wind by accident. "Do you still want to compensate?" Jian Wushuang looked at the people on the riverside and asked. "No, no more. Brother Wushuang, just be happy." The disciples of the newly increased life shrine almost heard Jian Wushuang's question and almost scared their buttocks to slump to the ground. When they talked back, they just felt that their teeth were shaking. Then, "Am I gone?" Jian Wushuang said with an eyebrow raised. "You walk slowly, walk slowly." Suddenly, these disciples of the newly increased life shrine said with a smile. Wu Jianshou shook his head, stepped on his feet, and suddenly turned into a golden light, disappearing into the sight of everyone. For him, this is just a tiny episode. A moment later, Jian Wushuang broke through the 5th level of domination, and the news of defeating the master of the magic wind with one finger spread to the Temple of Life. Most of those veterans of the life shrine who heard this news smiled a little. For them, it is quite normal for Jian Wushuang to defeat the Lord of the Wind, but it is strange if the sword is defeated by the Lord of the Wind. For those new shrine disciples who have never seen Jian Wushuang means, they are shocked, and there is no contempt for Jian Wushuang, full of fear and awe. When everyone was lamenting Jian Wushuang's talents, Jian Wushuang's mind suddenly received a supreme message and invited him to go to the supreme shrine. "Sword unparalleled, come to the supreme temple." "It is good." When I heard back a message, Jian Wu's eyes flickered for a while, and the figure that had originally swept towards the 6th mountain turned around and turned towards the supreme temple. Along the way, many masters at the 4th and 5th levels raised their heads and cast envious glances at Jian Wushuang. This is Jian Wushuang, really young. How long did Jian Wushuang come to the Shrine of Life, and he was dominated from the 3rd rank, and broke through to the 5th rank? The speed of promotion is unacceptable. The sword is unparalleled, worthy of the name of the first genius of our life shrine. The Lord of countless life shrines lamented. I was a little bit in my heart, and I was the master of the trial psychology. I couldn't help shaking my head, but at this moment I was extinguishing my thoughts. Sword unparalleled, although still dominated by the 5th level, they have already reached a point where they can hardly look beyond their reach. A moment later, in the awe of the gatekeeper of the Supreme Temple, a sword stepped into the Supreme Temple. In the temple, there is only one who is the Supreme of Blood. He looks at Jian Wushuang with a smile in his mouth. "Extreme blood." Jian Wushuang bowed his head slightly towards him, saluting respectfully. "I heard that you broke through the 5th grade and dominated?" Bloodwave Supreme noticed the breath of divine power in Jian Wushuang, and he couldn't help flashing a sigh of relief. "Oh good, it is indeed my Bloodwave who picked it. People, following this momentum, you will be a hegemon in the future." He Jiangxin's breakthrough, of course, he is happy, but Jian Wushuang's attitude towards him is where he really feels comforted. He did not see any pride and complacency on Jian Wushuang's body. Wu Jianwushuang is as calm as he was when he first met, with a humble yet confident and powerful heart. Extreme blood, do you have anything to do with me? Jian Wushuang asked. Shui's Weibo's expression gradually became calm. Shen said, swords are unparalleled. Can you know the ancient road to the sky? Xingkong ancient road? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows. He never heard anyone say, I really don't know, but I would like to ask the Supreme Master of Blood to elaborate. Sun Shuebo Supreme said, Jian Wushuang, you haven't been in the deep space for too long, you don't know the ancient way of the starry sky. It is normal, let me tell you about the ancient way of the starry sky. The Xingkong ancient road is divided into two. One is the Supreme Xingkong ancient road that only the Supreme can take, and the other is the one that can dominate the hierarchy, and it is the Xingkong ancient road. Generally speaking, the two ancient roads people don't interfere with each other and rarely meet. These two ancient roads in the sky are developed by the master of our universe with great magical powers. The treasures of chances in them are much higher than those in Terra's ruins. Of course, this is not worth mentioning. The most important thing is that these two stars and ancient roads, the adult will pay attention to it with his own eyes. Jian Wushuang, do you know what this means? This means that once you perform well in the ancient starry sky, you can enter that adult's eye. And once you really enter that adult's eye, it is against the sky good fortune. That lord. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He couldn't think of anyone else in this universe who deserves the supremacy of blood. He used the word adult. Extreme blood, who is that adult? Jian Wushuang asked, converging his thoughts. After hearing the words, Sun Shuebo Supreme thought for a while, and replied, the identity of that adult, you have not yet broken through the Supreme, so you still don't know. After you break through the Supreme, you will naturally know who that adult is. Chapter 4202. Second more. Oh. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows in surprise. Is the identity of the adult so mysterious? I can't be supreme, but I do even have the right to know the name? Jian Wushuang, about the identity of that adult, you do not ask now, because even if you know it occasionally, it is not a good thing for you, said Shuebo Supreme Shensheng. I understand. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. He is not a symbol and naturally knows that he should not ask what he should not ask. Seeing this, Sun Shuebo could not help but smile slightly, and said, Jian Wushuang, I can't tell you about the identity of that adult, but there are some secrets related to it that I can tell you. He froze for a moment and Bloodwave Supreme said, do you know the grand race? This. I don't know. Jian Wushuang arched his hand, the words of the grand race. He once mentioned a word when Baifu Supreme was leaving, but that is not knowing it makes no difference. Bloodwave Supreme replied, the grand race of the nations is held every 50 chaos conferences. By that time, the major forces of the entire universe, whether it is the kingdom of immortality, the ancient holy land, or the big names in the universe, the Lone Ranger will go to participate. It is a grand gathering of the best in the universe. Originally, only supreme-level strong men will be able to get tickets, but this time the cosmopolitan event, the adult released additional conditions to allow monks who dominate the level to enter. And this is just the beginning. The adult will choose 10 places in the cosmic event of the universe and become his boy. Listen to him. Jian Wushuang, don't underestimate the identity of the boy underneath you. You know, the master of the former Taro ruins this time, Taro Supreme. Why can you become the invincible Supreme? Wu Jianshuang was shocked and was not quite sure. More. Isn't Taro Supreme one of the adult's children? Bloodwave Supreme nodded his head and replied, yes, Taro Supreme Kendo was extremely talented at that time, and he performed well in the cosmic race event. He was given a seat by that adult and became a listener for hundreds of years. One of the 7, it is this creation that made the Tai Luo Supreme truly soaring into the sky, becoming one of the most invincible Supremes in the universe. Speaking of which, the Taro Excalibur is the Lord who gave Taro Supreme. Wu Jianshuang heard the words, but felt a palpitation. Even Taro Supreme, was it just a boy in the adult seat? Sigh. How old is that lord? Wu Jianshou did not dare to think about it. Jian Wushuang, this opportunity is rare. The suggestion of this seat is that you hope to go and dominate the ancient road of the starry sky. Maybe you will have the opportunity to enter the cosmopolitan event, even if you cannot be the 10 this time. One of the seats, but you can't even imagine the benefits of attending the cosmic event of the universe, said Bloodwave Supreme with a smile. I need to think about it. Jian Wushuang considered it and said back. Jian Wushuang didn't know much about the ancient road in the starry sky. He was not a reckless person. If the ancient road in the sky really suits him, he would not want to miss this grand event of the entire universe. That's natural. Bloodwave Supreme nodded with a smile. The two chatted a few more words. At this moment, the disciples in charge outside the hall suddenly rushed in. Master Bloodwave, King 9 and 9 Calamities are about to break the Supreme. What? Bloodwave Supreme and Jian Wushuang were shocked, then looked at each other with a smile on his face. Okay, it looks like our Palace of Life is about to have another Supreme Master of 9 Calamities. Go and see together. After Sun Xuebwa Supreme said, he and Jian Wu walked out of the Supreme Temple. When I saw that he had just stepped out of the temple, Sword Wushuang saw that the wind roared in the sky over the entire Palace of Life, the clouds were rolling, and a scene of heaven and calamity appeared. The King of 9 Calamities dominates the realm of the ultimate, staying for more than 40 chaos era. Once this breakthrough is successful, becoming supreme, it must be a huge momentum. Bloodwave Supreme said. Jian Wushuang nodded his head. As a special level of life with the same perfect level as his, Jiu Jiewu is as good as the ordinary Supreme. Jian Wushuang is also looking forward to seeing Jiu Jiewang's true breakthrough. To what extent? Thought of this, Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme at the same time looted towards the residence of King Jiujia. After a short while, Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme came to the 6th mountain, the residence of King Jiujia. I saw a mountaintop, the King of 9 Kings sitting cross-legged, white hair scattered, a horrifying divine power, as if turned into a raging wave, slaps the slap of the void around him. Numerous disciples of the Shrine of Life came to watch one after another, with envious envy on their faces. This is the breakthrough of the Supreme, the most top combat power of the entire universe. No matter where it goes, it is a well-deserved behemoth. Shi Qingfeng was also there. He was holding a pot of sake in his hands, looking at the Jiujia King in the distance, with some envy, and smiling happily. Jiujia King, you have finally taken this step. In the distance, a slave was pacing back and forth uneasily. He looked worried, and sometimes looked up at King Jiolong but wanted to say something, but was afraid he would disturb King Jiolong. Only I can sigh. For a while, the golden light flashed, and Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme fell to a slave. Don't worry, with the ability of King 9 Calamities, he can survive this supreme level. Bloodwave Supreme reached out his hand and patted a slave on the shoulder, said lightly. Master Bloodwave. Inu quickly met. You are welcome. Sun Xuebwa waved his hand indifferently, looking at the King of Jiolong. Yen Yinus' eyebrows were low and his expressions were respectful. He gave a glance at the Sword Wushuang next to him. His expression was a little complicated. Rumble. There are more and more dark clouds in the sky, and the gray one is thick and extremely heavy, giving a very depressed feeling. Roar, roar. There was a roar of gusts of wind, a flash of thunder, a silver snake flying, and the sky turned black in a flash. It started. Bloodwave Supreme's eyes were frozen, his voice fainted. Everyone hurriedly looked at the King of Jiolong. Huh! I saw a terrible explosion, and a crack appeared suddenly in the entire thick cloud layer, emitting magnificent rays of light. At this moment, like the beginning of heaven and earth, chaos and dawn, the turbulence of the air, and the endless immortal fall. Chapter 4203. The first is more. I am in danger today and I will prove Supreme Avenue. Under the endless immortality, King Jiujia, who sat cross-legged on the mountain, opened his eyes suddenly. In his eyes, countless avenues of gods spread and flow. his breath and divine powers suddenly began to change, at a speed visible to the naked eye. Chang, and then headed for a completely different place. Hey! A golden light, centered on the king of the 9 calamities, shot out and connected the world. At this moment, countless avenues evolve, countless divine powers flow, countless immortals fall, countless colorful clouds permeate, countless stars shine, as if the ancient immortal king came to the world. Extreme, succeed. A low voice came out of the mouth of King Jujia. The next moment, I saw the king of 9 calamities, standing up among the endless Xianhui. Between the heavens and the earth, there was a groan that shook the 9 heavens and 10 earths, as if the heavens were congratulating the king of Jiulong. Let's go. King Jujia shook his head. Suddenly, his words followed, and the vision of the whole sky began to dissipate. After a short while, heaven and earth regained a sense of clarity. The king of Jiujiaoliao stood on the top of the mountain with a negative hand, and a white suit was hunted and screamed by the mountain wind for a long time. More than 40 chaos era. He is the king of 9 calamities, and at the level of ultimate domination, he has been trapped for more than 40 times. No one can understand his feelings, what dominates the first person, what comparable to the supreme, and he has never been a rare king. From beginning to end, what he wants is to break through the supreme. And just today, the king of 9 calamities finally completed his wish and achieved the supreme seat. Since then, the universe is so big that he will be invincible in all directions. The host. Yuninu looked at the king of Jiulong and couldn't help crying. If he said that the only person in the world who could feel the feeling of King Jiulong was Inu. For as long as the King Jujia was trapped at the level of domination, he stayed with King Jujia for many years. He was full of loyalty and never changed. As soon as he wanted to go up and say something to King 9 calamities, he saw that Xie Baxian patted his shoulder and smiled, slave, let your master calm down now. Inu heard a word and nodded. After nearly half a column of incense time, the king of Jujia just spit out a stale air, his mood calmed down, and a smile hung on his face. Extreme blood, sword Wushuang Qingfeng wait. The glance of King Jiuzai glanced and greeted everyone one by one. Congratulations. 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 Everyone responded with a smile. Wang Jiujia nodded his head, then his eyes fell on Jian Wushuang's face again, a smile on his face, and he strode toward Jian Wushuang. At this moment, the king of Jujia is dazzling in his eyes, surrounded by fairy radiance around his body, just like a piece of timeless jade, and the whole person is full of immaculateness. Sword unparalleled. Originally I was still thinking, after you reach the ultimate realm and fight with you, now it seems that I have to go one step ahead. King Jujia smiled. Jian Wushuang also quite regrets this. Both of them are perfect creatures. Whether it is magical powers or the understanding of the laws of the universe, the gap is not too big. If you can fight at the ultimate dominating level, the promotion of people will be great. Well, wait for me after I reach the supreme realm, we will come to fulfill this agreement. Jian Wu's eyes flashed firmness, and he replied, Okay. King Han of Jiujia nodded with a smile. Rumble. At this moment, the sky suddenly changed, and a huge face appeared. The face of this man was made up of wrinkles, and his eyes were turbid. 9 calamities, come to the Supreme Temple, leave the imprint of the Supreme, and become the new Supreme of the Temple of my life. The voice of indifferent oldness came from this huge human face. Wang Jujia Wang nodded and respectfully replied, Yes. In the Temple of Life, if the person most respected by the King of 9 calamities is who it is, then it was naturally that he was led from the remote part of the universe to the Supreme of the Temple of Life. These more than 40 years of chaos, the main reason why he is anxious to break through the Supreme, and anxious to prove himself, is because of the Supreme Gav, and he does not want to disappoint the Supreme Gav. Fortunately, at this moment he finally broke through the Supreme, all past events, all dispersed with the wind. Sword unparalleled, it'll come to you later. King Jojia said, then stepped on, turned into a golden light, and disappeared into the sight of everyone. The crowd gradually dispersed after King Jojia left. Wu Jianshou brushed the manner as he thought about it. Now that he has just been promoted to dominate the 5th rank, in a short period of time, basically don't think about breaking through the ultimate domination. Therefore, it is no longer meaningful to stay in the palace of life. See if you can find a chance. She returned to the manor, cold as frost was closing her doors, and Jian Wushuang broke through one after another. Although she didn't say anything on her mouth, it caused a lot of pressure in her heart. She doesn't want to see that the gap between herself and Jian Wushuang is widening. A few moments later, the King of 9 Calamities arrived as promised. At this moment, he has changed into a white silk robe, which is the symbol of supreme status in the Palace of Life. Sword unparalleled. The two sat down beside the lake, and a pot of hot tea was burning in the middle, and a slight amount of heat rose up. Wang Zhujiawang took up a cup of hot tea and took a sip, and asked, Wu Jinshuang, where are you going next? Wu Jianshou groaned and said, I don't know. I might go to the ancient road to the sky. Oh, Shinkong Ancient Road? Jiao Jiawang raised an eyebrow and replied, It's a coincidence that sword is unparalleled. I'm also preparing to go to Shinkong Ancient Road to practice it. Upon hearing his thoughts, Wu Jianshuang asked, 9 disasters, are you going to the grand family event? King Zhujia nodded his head and said, That's of course, Jian Wushuang, you don't know. The grand race of the tens of thousands of nations will gather the entire universe. If you can get an admission ticket, the harvest will be great enough to meet you have to practice hardships for hundreds of millions of years every day. It can be said that in the depths of our universe, there is no one who does not want to participate in the grand festival of the nations. He froze. King Zhujia continued, The only chance to participate in the grand family event is to go to Shinkong Ancient Road. The longer you go on the ancient road, the farther you go, then the more likely you are to be picked by that adult. In the grand race, if you perform well in the grand race, you may still have the opportunity to become an obedient boy in the adult seat. Wu Jinshuang nodded his head when he heard the words and wondered, Jiao Jia, do you also know about the adult? King Zhouyan heard that he put down the teacup and groaned, and said, I also went to the Supreme Temple just after breaking through the Supreme, and the Supreme Lord told me that the name of the Supreme is taboo in the universe. The presence. Chapter 4204. Second more. Wu Jianshuang sighed lightly, and sure enough, the identity of that adult is only qualified to know. This seems to be an unwritten rule of the universe, a rule that flows only between the Supreme King of 9 robbers. Then when do you set off? Jian Wushuang cleared his throat and asked. Zhoumo is near Jian Wushuang, who dominates the Shinkong Ancient Road, and the Supreme Shinkong Ancient Road are not far away. At that time, the two of us can go all the way. King Zhujia returned. Wu Jianshou smiled and replied, I have this intention. Haha, sword unparalleled, then we will make an appointment, and then go to the ancient road to the sky together. Wang Shuanglong of Zhujia laughed. The two talked for a while, and the king of Jiulong left. And Jian Wushuang also began to prepare to go to the ancient road to the sky. Before going to Shinkonggu, Jian Wushuang intends to raise a wave of strength again. In the short period of time, I basically do and have to think about it. It is estimated that how much Jian Shuangsu can improve, the effect is minimal. However, this does not mean that Jian Wushuang cannot become stronger. Yi Yongye gave a sword, he just realized the fur, and there is still a lot of room to go up. The sword-cutting sword, a peerless killing sword skill learned by Jian Wushuang, has not yet been completed. Jian Wushuang strives to urge the sword-cutting sword to a satisfactory stage during this time. Power, I'm afraid there will be earth-shaking changes. And Jian Wushuang intends to try to urge the Taro Excalibur. Time turns 10 years later. The 6th mountain, a secret chamber in the manor where Jian Wushuang is located. Wu Jian sat cross-legged, his body was introverted, and he could not see the slightest fluctuation of his power. He lay in front of his knees, with a dark golden body across the body, covered with mysterious patterns, and a huge long sword with a vertical eye at the hilt. A wicked breath emanated from the long sword, and it was exactly the Taro Excalibur that had a mighty universe. Sword unparalleled, set off quickly and go to the ancient road to the sky. At this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded in Jian Wushuang's mind. Are you finally leaving? Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a gleam of light passed from his eyes. Next moment, Feng Shen Vine. Sword Wushuang's big hand waved, and ancient vines shot from his sleeve, starting from the position of the sword with the Taro Excalibur entangled. Suddenly, all the evil spirits on the Taro Excalibur were sealed. Qi Jian Wushuang picked up the Taro Excalibur and put it in a deep red sandalwood sword box, and lost it behind him. Then, Jian Wushuang stood up and walked towards the outside. Outside the Laoshan Mountains, King Nine Robbers stood with his hands up and down, and stepped in the void. Seeing Jian Wushuang coming out, he nodded and said, Sword Wushuang, can we start now? Yes. Jian Wushuang nodded and replied to the cold frost that was breaking through the retreat. Let's go then, said Zhujia Wang faintly. After a short while, the two came to the gate of the Life Shrine. With a wave of King Zhujia's hand, a dark spacecraft was swept up by the wind and swept across the starry sky. The two of them flew into the spacecraft. Boom! There was a loud roar, and the spacecraft gave a roar, which suddenly accelerated turned into a small black spot, and disappeared at the Temple of Life. The ancient starry sky is located in the deepest part of the universe, and it is extremely far away from the Temple of Life. However, it is nearly 90,000 years away from the grand cosmopolitan event, so they are not in a hurry and did not deliberately rush. Inside the universe boat. Jian Wushuang, how much do you know about the ancient road in the starry sky? King Zhujia asked casually. Wu Jinshuang heard the words, could not help but grin, and shook his head. I don't know. King Zhujia took a deep breath, and his expression gradually became clear. Then I will tell you that in this starry sky, the sky is gathered in the ancient road, which almost brings together the most powerful Tianjiao in the entire universe, and there are countless strong ones in it. For example, the great prince who worshipped the kingdom of God, the young emperor of the great kingdom of Sun, and the saints and virgins of some ancient sacred places, each of them are as invincible in the master as I was. Even when I was in the ultimate of the realm, I dare not care about this ancient road in the sky. Wu Jianwushuang heard the words, and his expression couldn't help rising. The universe is so big, Tianjiao's evildoers are countless, and Jian Wushuang thinks that he is invincible in the realm of before he is arrogant. The sword is unparalleled. I heard that there are 18 cities in the ancient sky, and the people in each city are fixed. If you want to go far in the ancient sky, you have to move the city people rush out and take their place. This ancient road in the sky, the more you go inside, the stronger the strength of each city. As for the strength of the last few cities, even if I was the one who dominated the realm, I couldn't see the depth. The king of 9 calamities said Shen Sheng. Jian Wushuang heard the words and squinted his eyes. These 18 cities. Sounds really exciting. There was a flash of turmoil in Wu Jian's eyes, and the more King Zhujia said, the more he looked forward. Time flies, the cosmic boat continues to advance in the universe. After 800 years, the 9 kings and Sword Wushuang have finally reached the extreme ancient road. Sword unparalleled, I'm here, I have no use holding this spacecraft, you can take it. King Zhujia stepped down from the cosmic boat. He took a deep look at Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, live well, I am looking forward to the moment when the two of us will meet at the Cosmos Grand Event. Wu Jianshou took a deep breath and arched his hand back. Sure. After a short while, King Zhujia stepped away and disappeared into the ancient road of supreme starry sky. The rest of the time is the lonely travel of Jian Wushuang. He followed the ancient route of Shinkong, which was dominated by King Zhozai, and traveled in the universe all the way. Wu Jian sat cross-legged and continued to comprehend the magic of Yongye. He can slowly feel that his understanding of Yongyi Shentong, after he broke through the 5th level, is rising at a very fast speed. 100 years have passed. Qi Jian Wushuang finally reached the ancient road that dominates the sky. He dominates the ancient sky, which is much more lively than the deserted scene of the extreme ancient sky. A large spacecraft stands in the sky, and people move quickly. a round of huge black holes, suspended like a monster's mouth, suspended in a starry sky. Wu Jianwushuang kept seeing a powerful ultimate-level master, with a look of indifference coming out of the vortex. I always have this huge black hole, which is the entrance to the ancient road to the sky. Wu Jian's eyebrows were raised, and he was interested to look at the entrance to the ancient road in the sky. Chapter 4205. The first is more. If you say that in the Taro ruins, you can occasionally see the 5th and 4th series of masters, then in front of this ancient sky, there are no monks below the ultimate master. Even these ultimate master monks are powerful and magnificent. They are all in the ultimate master and have reached the top level of the strong. This makes Jian Wushuang can't help but look forward to it. What will happen to the ancient road in the sky? This ancient road in the sky is really well-deserved, just the outermost. There are no weak people. Wu Jianshuang sighed with admiration, then walked down the spacecraft, closed the spacecraft, and walked towards the gate of the ancient road to the sky. Stop coming! At this moment, when Jian Wushuang was about to set foot on the ancient road of the starry sky, the two ultimate masters holding Changgu and Changgu in their hands violently crossed and blocked the sword Wushuang grid. Jian Wushuang frowned and said lightly, "What do you mean? You want to go in? You can pay 1,000,000 cosmic source stones." The two ultimate masters indifferently left the sword Wushuang, expressionless. Qi Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes. The 1,000,000 source rocks of the universe were only a small number to him, but this did not mean that he would be like a fool and let others pit. He has never heard anyone talk about entering the ancient road to the sky, but also need to pay the source stone of the universe. Why don't they need to pay for the source stone of the universe? Jian Wushuang glanced sideways and said lightly. He was next to him, a top ultimate master, and walked in without hindrance. They are the ultimate masters. Naturally, they don't need to pay the source stone of the universe, but you are just the 5th level master. Can you compare with them? The two gatekeepers looked up at the sword unparalleled, and the corners of his mouth evoked a whisper. To tell you the truth, we are His Majesty the Lord of the First City. If you want to enter the ancient road of the starry sky, obey the rules and pay 1,000,000 universe source stones. Jian Wushuang saw this. His eyebrows could not help getting cold. So what if I don't pay? Jian Wushuang said coldly. No. Suddenly there was a smirk on the faces of the two gatekeepers, raised Changgu, and stabbed at the sword Wushuang fiercely. Get out of me then. Ha! A violent divine power suddenly followed Changgu, stabbed Jian Shuang's chest fiercely. Look for death. Wu Jianshuang's face flashed a little anger, raised his hand, and shot at the two door guards severely. The two gatekeepers in charge of the gatekeepers are the strongest in the ultimate domination. Not only did Jian Shuang see the sword, they turned and patted them. The two guardians couldn't help looking at each other and laughed. Is this man a fool who can't do it? A junior 5th-ranking master, who is so overwhelmed and shoots at us? Aki, we have been here for so long, this is the first time we have met such an interesting person. Don't rush to kill him, just let him play with us. The two of them laughed and talked. The palm shot by Jian Wushuang was not at all serious, and their eyes were full of teasing. Jian has no expression on both sides, such a stupid thing he has not seen much before, naturally he will not be angry about it. Ha! Suddenly, the sword was unparalleled in the palm of his hand, and he was slammed on the two Changgu. The majestic and mighty divine power directly turned these two handles into instant powder. Get it, what? Suddenly, the two janitors were covered with sneer, and the smiles froze instantly, holding back a horror. How can the Lord have such a terrifying power? He didn't wait for their words to finish, the sword Wushuang's palm, they directly started the two from the skull and made a meat sauce. Both humans and gods are gone. Stupid. The sword was retracted without expression on both sides and faceless. To deal with this kind of ordinary overlord, he would not even use Wu weapon Excalibur and directly exploded the most primitive divine power. Some of the ultimate masters around the puppet, after seeing this scene, did not have much surprise. After a little footsteps, they continued what they should do. The Shinkong ancient road gathers the universe's heavenly pride and evil, and there are many people who can cross the border to kill the enemy. They have long been surprised. I just don't know, this new guy is from what power the Son of God? They shook their heads and strode away. Suddenly at the entrance, Jian Wushuang stepped on his feet. Suddenly his body swept up and blasted towards the black hole at the entrance of Shinkong Ancient Road. Inside the Shinkong Ancient Road, it seems to be a very long dark channel. After Jian Wushuang erupted at full speed, after flying for a long time, he gradually saw a ray of light. Slowly, the light is getting bigger and bigger. The next moment, Jian Wu's eyes are suddenly bright. I saw a huge towering city in front of Jian Wushuang's eyes. This city is huge and unimaginable. The wall alone is 100,000 feet high. Above the wall, there is a huge plaque engraved with the 3 characters, First City. Listen to the king of Jolong, there are 18 cities on the ancient starry sky. These 18 cities are 18 checkpoints. It seems that this first city is the first checkpoint. Wu Jian whispered to himself, his eyes continued to glance down. I saw a huge stone monument at the gate of the city gate. The stone monument is engraved with 1,000 glittering names, the first of which is the entrance of the starry ancient road. The skeletal master said in the guard's mouth is the master of this first city. No wonder the 2 guards dare to be so arrogant and want to come back to rely on this skeleton to dominate. Jian Wushuang shook his head and said to himself. His eyes continued to look around. I saw countless ultimate masters, sitting cross-legged under the city wall, who did not bother anyone, all in retreat. Jian Wushuang did not rush to the city, but sat down on his knees, intending to understand the rules of the ancient road in the sky. Sir, presumably you have just come to Shinkong Ancient Road? At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded behind Jian Wushuang. Wu Jianshou looked back and saw a chubby young man looking at him with a smile. Is there anything wrong? Jian Wushuang frowned, stepping back a bit, and asked. The chubby young man replied with a smile on his mouth, Have no need to be nervous, let me introduce myself first. My name is Wuhai Lord. You can call me Wuhai. How dare you call me? Blood Sword. Sword Wushuang said faintly. Sir Blood Sword, I have a word of persuasion, I wonder if you would like to listen? Wuhai Archer arched his hand and said, But it doesn't matter. Jian Wushuang replied faintly. Okay. Wu Hai dominated for a while, his expression of kindness gradually became calm. Chapter 4206. Second more. Blood Sword, I think you are only dominated by the 5th grade. This kind of cultivation is okay to be placed in the outer universe, but in the ancient road of the starry sky that proudly walks on this day, it is quite dangerous, so I advise you can join our Casual Repair Alliance. Our Casual Repair Alliance is as ordinary as you and me, or weak masters. In this starry sky, we can take care of each other and have a guarantee. How? After finishing speaking, Wuhai's master pointed to the distance. Jian Wushuang looked in the direction he pointed, and saw more than 20 ultimate masters with a more ordinary atmosphere, nodding in a friendly smile at Jian Wushuang. Withdrawing his gaze, Jian Wushuang said faintly, Thank you Wuhai for your good intentions, but even if you join, I have always been a lonely person, and I am afraid it will be difficult to integrate into the group. Blood Sword, we are all very good people. If you don't join us, how do you know if you can't get in? Wuhai Master said quickly. After waiting for him to finish speaking, Jian Wushuang waved his hands and sat down cross-legged, slowly closing his eyes and entering the practice. Seeing this, the master of the Wuhai Sea did not know where Jian Wushuang was trying to catch people, and sighed. That Blood Sword, you can do it yourself. I waited for a while, and the master of Wuhai didn't see Jian Wushuang's reply. He shook his head and left. After Wu dominated, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a sneer sneered in the corner of his mouth. Wu dedicates himself to diligence. When he saw Wushuang, was he a fool who had never seen the world? Distant distance, where more than 20 ordinary ultimate dominates. Wu Hai, that kid won't join us? Failed. This group of ordinary ultimate masters frowned and asked. This kid's life is too big. Wu Hai dominated a gloomy face. His eyes flashed with where there was a half-hearted and kind-hearted look. More than 20 of them, knowing that they could not perform well in the Shinkong Ancient Road, not the opponents of Tianjio's evil spirits, they joined together and devoted themselves at the entrance of the first city of Shinkong Ancient Road to kill like a sword. Newcomer into the ancient sky. The routine used by Sun is also roughly the same as the one that he used to cheat Jian Wushuang just now. He used the newcomer to enter the Shinkong Ancient Road and did not understand the situation of the Ancient Road. He desperately wanted to find someone to hold a group. After a temptation, he joined forces to kill. Let's go, change next one. Dou Wuhai dominated his face again with a kind smile, and walked towards a new-looking newcomer in the distance. Sir, how do you call it? Just as you saw Jian Wushuang, Wuhai's eyes shone with kindness and smiled. In this ancient starry sky, there are really 3 teachings and 9 streams, and there are all characters. Jian Wushuang sighed. In the distance, the new man who was deceived by the Wuhai master was following the Wuhai master with excitement, approached the crowd, and was then taken away. Seeing this situation, Jian could not help but shook his head. He was not a newcomer to the universe, and he knew what the routine was. Huh! At this moment, Jian Wushuang saw a middle-aged ultimate master sitting not far in front of him, swept up one step, and walked towards the gate of the first city. Someone wants to challenge the people in the city? Have you entered the city? Qinglin dominated the gate of this first city and has been here for 3,000 years. This time when we go to the city to challenge, we must have a certain victory. As I said, the people in this city should change. Many people around the meditation group saw this scene and whispered and talked. Jian Wu's eyes flickered. It seems that the situation here is almost the same as that of King Zhujia. The number of people in this first city is fixed. If you want to enter the city and continue to go back, you will have to people in the city squeezed out and took their place. As everyone discussed, they looked at the stele where the gate recorded the ranking. I saw it not long before. There was a sudden flash of golden light on that stele, and the ranking suddenly changed. First place, Bones. Second place, Mu Chong thousands, Qinglin. Soon after, Jian Wushuang saw that a skinny old man flew from the city with embarrassed face. His face was extremely ugly. I do and T want to come here. This person is originally 1,000 people. In other words, the seat that belongs to this person was replaced by the middle-aged master. I saw the old and thin old man. After looking at the first city unwillingly, I didn't say much. Then he sat down and crossed his knees, and began to repair. Then, on that stone tablet, Jingguang was still flashing, only to see that the ranking of the Qinglin dominated one after another, until it reached the middle position before stopping. At this scene, there was a sudden exclaim outside the gate of the first city. 632. Qinglin dominates this time. The rules and regulations contained in that city are far stronger than those outside this city. Maybe Qinglin's master might have a chance to impact the second city. Time passed slowly. Jian Wushuang did not rush into the city, but watched calmly. During this period, Jian Wushuang saw one after another, but most of them ended in failure, and only a few people succeeded. It is worth mentioning that the master of the Wuhai went to the city and succeeded, and the ranking was not low, which was higher than that of the Qinglin leader, ranking 518th. As for the new man who was taken away by the Wuhai master, Jian Wushuang never saw it again. After a few more days, Jian Wushuang stood up with no expression on his face and walked towards the gate. In the days of observation, he has fully understood the rules of the ancient road in the starry sky. Naturally, there is no need to sit here and waste time. Dominate the 5th series? The 5th level dominates the city, which is rare. Who is dominated by this 5th series? When some of the ultimate masters outside the city gate saw the situation, they gave a flick. Suddenly, the group of Sansho Alliance members shrank their pupils, and then sneered on their faces. Isn't that the boy who rejected us at the beginning? It looks like this kid has confidence in himself. I hope this person prays in his heart not to meet the Black Sea, otherwise, this person is afraid that he cannot come out alive. Wu Jianshuang, with a calm expression, walked towards the city gate step by step. With a deep muffled sound, the gate opened and Jian Wushuang stepped in. Rumble! The gate of Wuqing slowly closed, and the figure of Jian Wushuang disappeared into the sight of everyone. The people outside the city gate looked up and looked towards the stone monument outside the city gate with interest. Rarely, it is the 5th grade that dominates the repair for the city. Chapter 4207. The first is more. With a gust of wind blowing, Jian Wushuang looked at him with a calm expression. I saw a barren land in this city, but the breath of divine power and law was very strong. There are countless low-lying halls built in this city. Each of them is hung with a wooden sign engraved with different numbers. From 1,000 to the first, a whole 1,000 low-lying halls are arranged in a one. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. From the moment he stepped into the first city, he felt that in this world, there seemed to be a pair of invisible eyes that were watching him. Wu Jianwushuang knew that this was not his illusion. The master of those eyes, if he did not guess wrong, would like to be the master. Wu Jianwushuang didn't care. He walked in front of the door of the thousand palaces and immediately took down the wooden sign and knocked on the door. The next moment, I saw a burly man holding a sledgehammer and striding out of the temple. The 5th grade dominates? The burly man looked at Jian Wushuang and saw that Jian Wushuang's breath was only fluctuating at the 5th level, and he suddenly curiously gave a quiet beep. Immediately, he shook his head and said in a rough voice, I am a giant god, little one. Do you want to challenge me? Wu Jianso nodded his head, his expression calmly, yes. Let's get started. Immediately, an invisible wave surged in the void, covering the place where the two were. This intangible wave, the vast horror is extremely extreme, and Rao is a sword unparalleled, cannot help but be surprised. This should be the rules in the ancient road, to determine the winning and losing of the two sides, and to protect the fighting between the two, will not cause a residual wave affecting other people around. Jian Wushuang's mind flashed. Roar! I saw the burly roar violently, the whole Buddha's skin appeared red, and the blue tendons were twisted like tree roots. He lifted the sledgehammer and slammed hard at the sword unparalleled. Wu Jian's double-sided hammer on this incomparable majesty, his expression was dull, and he slowly raised his finger toward the burly man. Ha! A loud bang exploded, and I saw the sledgehammer split apart. The sword's unparalleled finger stopped at his forehead in the eyes of the burly man. A sign. Wu Jianwushuang looked calm and continued to walk towards another temple. How is it possible? The burly man opened his eyes and stared at Jian Wushuang's back with a stare. Immediately, a cold sweat rose from his forehead. The finger just now, as long as you push 3 inches forward, you can kill him. First city, outside the gate. Success. How is that possible? Isn't this person dominating the 5th grade? Could it be that I'm wrong? Will this man come from the prince who is born by the top forces? To defeat the enemy across borders, this is not common. Many of the masters discussed with an interested look on their faces. They are not so frightened. After all, this ancient starry road has gathered the universe's arrogant and evil spirits, who can cross the border to kill the enemy. They have stayed here for so many years and have seen a few. It has long been strange. On the stone tablet, the number 1000 seat, the words Julie dominate gradually disappeared, replaced by the word blood sword. After Julius came out, ask him what is going on, and how he can't even beat a 5th-ranked dominator. Wu Yu, the ultimate master who is familiar with Julie, joked. After a long wait, everyone saw Julie dominate the disgrace and walked out from the gate. July dominates. What is the situation with that blood sword? Tell us? Haha, dominated by Julie, you can be ashamed this time, but you have been defeated by a 5th-level kid. Is that something good for you, boy? Julie's friends deliberately laughed and joked. Julie dominated Wenyan, glared at them and hummed, Who are you, Julie? What are the benefits? After a long pause, the master of Julie took a deep breath and said solemnly, This person's horror means. If you haven't seen it before, don't talk nonsense. After finishing talking, Julie stopped talking, and instead sat down with her knees crossed, her eyes flashed with a touch of complexity. Until now, he still had a lingering fear. That finger is really terrifying. He lost his convictions. Julie, he really is as scary as you say? Well, tell the big guy, how did you lose? The ultimate master around him chuckled and laughed. In their view, the giant master said this, but he just found himself stepping down. After all, only by saying the sword Wushuang is powerful enough can he look less embarrassed. Julie dominated when Yen glanced across the faces of these ultimate masters, took a deep breath, stretched out a finger, and slowly said, "This man defeated me with only one finger." As soon as this sentence fell, everyone in the audience was shocked. What? Only one finger? Julie, do you mean it? At this moment, everyone couldn't help but a slight change in complexion. You must know that the cross-border defeat of the enemy and the hard effort to defeat the enemy are different. As the people questioned toward the master of Julie, I saw someone suddenly exclaiming in the crowd, "Look, the ranking of the blood sword has risen again." Everyone hurriedly looked at the steel. I saw the word blood sword on the stone tablet, which is soaring at a speed like a bamboo shoot. 99th place blood sword. Number 998, blood sword. 865, blood sword. 63, blood sword. In the blink of an eye, Jian Wushuang's ranking on the steel suddenly soared to the 663th place, just lower than the first Qinglin Dominator. At this moment, the outside of the city gate became as quiet as death. Everyone was caught in front of the scene, and the shocked eyes almost fell down. They watched with all their might, Jian Wushuang's ranking, soaring forward without any staying. Almost when they just blinked and looked again, Jian Wushuang's ranking had already moved up a step. I remember the last time I came to the first city, the promotion speed was so fast, or the great prince of the kingdom of God. An ultimate master, said with a swallowed throat. Isn't that saying that this man is the kind of heavenly pride that can stand shoulder to shoulder with the great prince? There was the ultimate dominator of tongue. Amongst the crowd, the only person who has a casual repair alliance has a slightly unpleasant expression. Well, this person deserves to be compared with the great prince? But the great prince has a famous invincible master in the entire universe. From which nest did this person emerge? Among the Sansho alliance, there is a famous master who disdains Lung who said. Everyone heard the words and couldn't help but look at him. Chapter 4208. Second more. Unexpectedly, I still underestimate this person, but this blood sword should be almost the same here. Wuhai is in the 518th place. This blood sword meets Wuhai and it is definitely not good. The ultimate master of the Sansho alliance smirked. However, it was such a discussion of the people that Jian Wushuang's ranking suddenly surpassed Qinglin's dominance and reached a point where it was more advanced. The first city inside the city. The sign. Ji Jian said with no expression on both sides, and then proceeded to the temple in front. From beginning to end, Jian Wushuang only used one finger. No matter what the ultimate master, Jian Wushuang only pointed to the past, and the majestic divine power directly crushed it. The time passed slowly, and Jian Wushuang's ranking also skyrocketed with it. In just a few hours, the ranking of Jian Wushuang reached 519. The next one is the Wuhai master who has previously recruited Jian Wushuang. Wu Jianshuang looked calm and walked step by step to the door of the hall with the number 518 wooden sign. He reached out and knocked on the door of the hall. Immediately, the master of Wuhai came out of it. Is it you? When the master of Wuhai saw Jian Wushuang, he was shocked, and then there was a cloudy look on his face. He is not a fool, otherwise he would not kill so many newcomers at the gate of the first city without ever kicking the iron plate. When Jian Wushuang can come to this position, it naturally represents Jian Wushuang's strength, far beyond his imagination. Blood sword, I didn't expect you to be able to come to this position. No wonder he was unwilling to join us at the beginning. Wu Hai's dominion resuspended a kind smile on his face. With his rather thick fat face, it seemed to be in human harm. Wu Jianshou sneered in heart. This person is a smiling tiger, looking at the kindness and kindness, but he is not sure what kind of bad tricks he is thinking. Master of Wuhai, let's start. Jian Wushuang said lightly. Blood sword, I do and T need to fight between us. I exhausted the strength of 9 cattle and 2 tigers, and finally managed to climb to this position, and you really look relaxed with blood sword. I know myself, I do and T think it will be your opponent. Wuhai's master scratched his head and grinned broadly. Oh? Are you serious? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and smiled. Of course, Lord Bloodsword, I have spent so long in this starry sky ancient road. I may not have learned anything else, but I have developed a good wink. Lord Bloodsword must be like a dragon in the sky in the future. Characters, I do and T have to show ugliness, I would like to admire the wind. Wuhai Master said with a smile. After Su said, Lord Wuhai turned and walked towards the temples behind Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang saw this. With deep eyes, he no longer cares about him, and continued to walk to the higher-ranking temple. At this moment, the abnormality suddenly rises. The master of Wu turned abruptly, and the sweet smile on that fat face became full of violent killings. He took out a dark flag in his right hand and killed the sword unparalleledly. All of a sudden, a horrendous black mist sprang up, sending out a scream of 9 evil spirits, turning it into a huge mouth, and beheading it towards Jian Wushuang. The sword is unparalleled, as if he didn't notice the horrific killing in the back, and continued to move forward. Seeing this, the master of Wuhai laughed with a smile on his face. He can already imagine that Jian Wushuang was torn up by the evil spirits in this banner. Blood sword, go to death. Wu Hai dominated Pang Di, who was extremely incomparable. However, he didn't realize that an icy swordsman had already shot from the fingertips of Jian Wu and killed him. There is no hindrance, like a knife cut tofu. This icy sword is straight through the heavy black mist and passed through Wu Hai's dominated eyebrow. Suddenly, the domineering sword power directly killed every inch of divine power in the Lord Wu Hai's body. Until the death, Wu Hai's master still had a big smile on his face. Jian Wushuang still hasn't looked back, not even a footstep, the hair ends of the black hair slightly raised, and continued to move forward. Outside the city gate, many ultimate masters are watching this scene without blinking. Wu Hai is dominated right away. The guy in Wu Hai has always been scheming and cruel. He is not an easy character to deal with. I don't know if Blood Sword can survive this time. The ultimate masters are all discussing at will. At this moment, they have no laughter on their faces. To this day, anyone can see that although the Blood Sword's cultivation is only the 5th level, its combat power is definitely the terrible existence of the dominated ranks. As a result, they began to look forward to Jian Wushuang, and they wanted to see where Jian Wushuang could go. After all, if you can witness the rise of Tianjiao with your own eyes, it will be a beautiful conversation in the future. Outside of the city gate, the people who only take part in the alliance are not very good-looking. Well, who are they blood swords? The 3 princes who worship the kingdom of God, or the young emperors of the kingdom of God of the Sun? Or the ancient holy places, the immortal inheritance of the Son of God? The rise of Tianjiao? Maybe it is too mythical? A master of a casual union said sourly. As the leader of Wuhai Master, they naturally support the master of Wuhai. Correspondingly, they are doing everything they can to devalue Jian Wushuang. You see, the ranking of Blood Sword has stopped. Sure enough, it seemed to verify their guess. When Jian Wushuang rose to the 529th place, the rising speed stopped abruptly. I said, how could this Blood Sword be the opponent of Wuhai? Suddenly the Scattermaster who previously derogated Jian Wushuang laughed. However, before he finished laughing, he suddenly seemed to be choked up by his throat, and his arrogant laughter came to an abrupt end, and his complexion turned into a pig's liver color. I saw a flash of golden light on the steel, and the name belonging to the master of Wuhai was slowly erased by an invisible large hand. Wuhai, he lost to the kid's hands? The Sanzhou master shouted unbelievably. Not lost, but dead. Not far away beside him, an ultimate master shook his head, his eyes gleaming. As people who have spent many years in this starry sky, they can naturally see the difference between defeat and death. If it is only a defeat, except for the master who ranked last in the steel, he will be kicked out of the city gate, but the others will only be ranked one by one. And if it dies inside, the name belonging to that person will be erased directly. Dead? Dead? After hearing the words of the Sanshio alliance, they were extremely scared. Chapter 4209. The first is more. Many of the ultimate masters looked at the glittering word blood sword on the stone monument, only to feel a chill straight from the backbone to the top of their heads, and they trembled and never dared to speak wildly. The blood sword hasn't stopped yet. I'm afraid the goal is to go to the number 1 lord of the first city. The former master who broke the truth before that said to himself, the rules of the Shinkong ancient road are not that you must go to the front of the first city to be able to challenge the second city. If you want to, even if you are the last one in the first city, you can directly challenge the second city. People. For example, the main body of the first city is dominated by the skeleton. As the first person ranked first in the first city, it is natural that it is possible to break into the second city or even the third city. However, instead of doing the crane tail in the second and third cities, it is better for him to be the city owner in the first city. On the streets in the first city, Jian Wushuang's expression was calm and he walked slowly. The Wu-crying Excalibur, obliquely attached to his waist, has not been sheathed from beginning to end. For Jian Wushuang, these ultimate dominators are enough to crush when he is dominated by the 4th level, not to mention he now breaks through the 5th after-level domination. No one was able to take his move. 510th place. 430th place. 219th place. 3rd place. The speed of the sword is unparalleled, and without a pause, it rises to the 3rd position in just half a day. At this moment, not only the people outside the city began to pay attention to the ranking of Jian Wushuang. Even those in the first city who were defeated by Jian Wushuang went to the streets, followed behind Jian Wushuang, and said nothing. At the beginning, there was only one person behind Jian Wushuang. With more and more people defeated by Jian Wushuang, the ranking is getting higher and higher. Gradually, the number of people following Jian Wushuang has become black with the speed visible to the naked eye. They followed behind Jian Wushuang far away, looking at Jian Wushuang's back, full of awe. Among them, many of them saw Jian Wushuang only at the 5th level and despised the mockers, but now, they have been completely convinced by Jian Wushuang's strength and awe. Alas! In countless eyes, Jian Wushuang took the wooden sign of the second palace and knocked on the door of the second palace. After a short while, a young man in white clothing, a machete in italics, with a cold face, walked out of the temple. The first city, the second place, Muchong Shenjun. The first city of Shinggong Ancient Road, the ranking on that stele often changes. After all, everyone is the ultimate dominator, and the particularly strong has already taken the lead. Therefore, the remaining ultimate dominators, in fact, there is not much difference in strength, and the ranking is often transformation has also become a regular occurrence. But in these thousands of years, the names of only 2 people have never changed from start to finish. The 2 men are the bone marrows who occupy the top and second positions of the list, and they worship the monarchs. It is said that Mu Chongshen has amazing talents. From the beginning of his practice to the ultimate master, it only took a few chaotic times. It may not be comparable to those gods and suns in the universe, but it is placed in the level of ordinary ultimate masters. Can be counted as one of the best. In these thousands of years, Mu Chong Shenjun has firmly occupied the second place since he entered the ancient road to the sky, and has never changed. I don't know the blood sword, this time I can still continue the previous sturdy record and defeat the Mu Chongshen. Mu Chongshen is the pride of heaven in our first city. I don't know how many people have been defeated in the hands of Mu Chongshen. Although this blood sword shows great strength, can it be the opponent of Mu Chongshen? It's really unknown. Yes, Mu Chong has not shot for nearly thousands of years. No one knows where the strength has reached now. Outside the city gate, many of the ultimate dominators looked at the stele and talked. If someone said to them before that there is a 5th-level master who can be promoted from the last one to the 3rd position in the first city, they will definitely sniff and treat it as a joke. But now, the fact of iron strikes is in front of them. They have no match for the sword in their hearts, and they have long lost their contempt. However, it took tens of thousands of years for Mu Chongshan to build up the prestige, so that they were more inclined to believe that Mu Chongshan would win. At the same time, a fierce discussion broke out in the first city. Mu Chongshan is very strong, but the strength of the blood sword cannot be underestimated. You must know that the blood sword came here, but only one finger from the beginning to the end. This match, I bet the blood sword will win. Anyway, there was a good show this time. Compared with people outside the city, the people inside the city know the horror of Jian Wushuang more intuitively. The outsiders only saw Jian Wushuang's ranking soar, but they did not see that Jian Wushuang's defeated enemy had only shown one finger from start to finish. In the sound of the discussion, Mu Chongshan stepped out of the temple step by step. He ignored the discussions of the crowd, but looked at Jian Wushuang up and down and frowned. The 5th-grade master? Wu Jianshuang's expression was calm. After such questions, he had heard it no less than 100 times after entering the ancient sky. Jian Wushuang nodded calmly. It's interesting. Mu Chongshan smiled slightly and continued. It's not easy to walk here with the 5th-level cultivation if you want to be talented. It's not as good as me, not much worse than me. Let us go. I'll give you a chance. Cultivate yourself to the ultimate level, and then come and fight with me. After he said that, Mu Chongshan planned to return to the temple. He was quite interested. For thousands of years, someone finally came to him and shot at him. As soon as the result came out, what he saw was only a 5th-rank dominator, and he just felt that it meant nothing. He became famous in his youth and always has high arrogance. In his opinion, even if he is not fighting with him, he is not the emperor of the divine kingdom, the son of the Holy Land, but anyway, he must be the ultimate master of the top level, right? What's the matter of a 5th-rank dominion in Chiotsu district? Seeing the ultimate master of this scene, many shook his head when he saw the situation. Mu Chongshan is still no one in his eyes. It seems that in the past thousands of years, the pride of Mu Chongshan has come to the point of conceit. Look at me, this blood sword is coming at the right time. This is the first city of the ancient sky. It is time to reshuffle. They whispered and discussed. And Sword Wushuang squinted his eyes, a quirky look on his face. Chapter 42:10. The second is even more. This is his first encounter. Someone said to him, "Your talent is not as good as me, even if it is the same perfect soul level." Jiu Jie Wang, in terms of talent, facing Jian Wushuang is inferior to himself. Wu Jinshuang does not sound angry, but feels a bit fresh. Looks, are you finally meeting a strong man? Yen Jianhui's eyes flickered, and finally there was a sense of war. On this journey, the opponents he met almost let him have no interest in fighting, and his hands were itching to the extreme. Suddenly, although the person in front of him didn't look very strong, listening to him should be a person who was very confident in his combat ability. Cowardly and confident often comes from affirming one's own strength. In other words, he is strong. It seems that you can't deal with it at will. Jian Wushuang muttered to himself. The next moment, Wu Wei's divine sword appeared instantly in Jian Wush's hands. Jian Wushuang looked at Mu Chongshan, his eyes flickered with war, and he said, "Mu Chongshan, let's fight." Okay. Mu Chongshan stepped in a footstep, turned his head to look at Jian Wushuang, and raised his eyebrows. Are you sure? Okay. Sword Wushuang opened. Also, I hope this battle will not leave you with a shadow of fear. Mu Chongshan sighed and shook his head again, as if he was sorry for the sword unparalleled. Immediately he lifted the cold moon scimitar, and when he stepped on it he suddenly turned into an afterimage and split towards the sword. 9 ways cut. Mu Chongshan drank. Suddenly, the cold moon scimitar in his hand cut out a cold moon sword mang, and after shooting from the machete, the cold moon sword man was divided into 9 in an instant. and at the same time turned into 900 feet Daomeng, folded from the void, split like lightning. A sharp force of divine power and the laws of the universe covered this sword, which seemed extremely powerful and mysterious, giving people a sense of dazzling and unrivaled. 9 road slash. This is the mastery of Muchongshin. These 9 cuts are far more simple than being divided into 9. The 9 cuts are just like the tide of high tide. One cut is stronger than the other. The whole 9 cuts are enough to instantly kill an ordinary ultimate master. Behind Wu Jian's body, many of the ultimate masters fixed their eyes and said, "And sword unparalleled," but frowned slightly. The divine power fluctuations uploaded by these 9 Daomengs appear to Jian Wushuang, although they are a lot stronger than the ultimate masters he encountered before. But it is only limited to this. It seems, that's it? Jian Wushuang felt the fluctuation of the divine power on these 9 swords, and his brows could not help wrinkling and tightening. No, there must be something wrong. This person is so confident that he can't be so weak. Jian Wushuang murmured to himself, then clenched the Wu Cry Excalibur in his hand, and exploded into 20% of the divine power in his body. Daomeng beheaded. This is the first time that Sword Wushuang used the sword after breaking through the 5th rank domination. This sword, although it has only 20% of the magic power of Jian Wushuang, but the burst of power is more powerful than the full blow of Jian Wushuang when the 4th level dominated. Rumble! Suddenly, the world was eclipsed, and a scarlet swordsman was cut out like a big python swallowing the sun. At this place of the sword, as if the same stone stirred up 1,000 layers of waves, the whole house was shocked. It is impossible to use any words to describe the horror in the eyes of everyone after seeing this sword. At this moment, the entire first city shuddered at it. The scarlet sword horn shattered countless air machines directly. Carry the power of destroying the heavens and the earth, and chop down towards Muchong God. Huh! It was almost the moment that this scarlet swordman collided with the 9 moonblades of Muchongshin, and the 9 moonblades were shattered one after another. And this scarlet Zhenmeng, only after the light dimmed a little, then cut it again towards Muchongshin Jun. This? Shimachongshin's face changed suddenly, and he could no longer maintain the indifference and confidence on his face. He looked at the sword that was cut from the sky with the power of destruction, and his mouth began to tremble. How could it be so strong? At this moment, not only the face of Muchongshin changed greatly, but many of the ultimate masters who followed behind Jian Wushuang were astonished and took a breath. They expected that Jian Wushuang would be strong before, but did not expect it, but when Jian Wushuang actually shot, they would be so powerful. Break me! At that moment, the face of Junjun Yi of Chongshin was flushed with a shouting expression. Suddenly, several pieces of defensive rules were treasured. They were taken out by Muchongshin backhand, blocking this sharp sword. This is not enough. Muchong is biting the tip of his tongue and directly bursting out the mystery of burning power. He successively chopped 999 swords to resist this sword. Rumble! Suddenly, a blast of noise came, blasting huge pits in the first city, raising huge smoke and dust. Alas, under the rules of the ancient road in the sky, these giant pits soon returned to their original state. Finally, the smoke gradually dispersed. Yumuchong Shinjun shed his hair. The wolf was trembling to the extreme, panting with a big mouth, and no longer calm before. Jian Wushuang saw this and could not help but make a long, "Is it just that?" Wu Jian Wushuang secretly whispered in his heart, and suddenly came to understand, "I'm afraid he overestimated this Muchongshin." Before stepping into the Shinkong ancient road, whether it was the supreme of blood wave or the king of 9 calamities, the thought he instilled in him was that the people in the Shinkong ancient road were very strong. This also led, sword unparalleled into the sky after the ancient road has maintained his cautious attitude. This made him, when he met Muchong, the king subconsciously overestimated the strength of the opponent. Withdrawing his thoughts, Jian Wushuang Chaomu Muchongshin arched his hand, and said lightly, "Leave." Herd Chong gods, animal husbandry, paying lip service to help twitched. He is arrogant, But he is not a narrow-minded person, he can feel it. Jian Wushuang closed his hand at the last moment, otherwise, he would never be able to stand here unscathed. Thank you for your close hand. Took a deep breath, animal husbandry and worship gods convinced road. Sword warriors nodded and continued walking toward the city first. And many more. At this point, animal husbandry worship gods suddenly shouted to him. Sword warriors go back and look at some puzzled expression, animal husbandry, to worship gods. Shuejin Excellency, your strength should not be our first city, behind the city, should be the place you go to hegemony, therefore Shuejin sir, you might as well go directly to the second city is. Chong gods, animal husbandry, Gong Shing said. Sword unparalleled showing off his strength, natural, animal husbandry worship gods before they can no longer with the attitude to deal with the sword unparalleled. Strong respect where it is the last word. Chapter 42:11. The first is more. Oh. Wu Jianshou raised his eyebrows, and after a moment of groaning he smiled and said, don't you want me to challenge the bone dominate? Yes. Mu Chongshan nodded and said sincerely, blood sword, you don't know, the bone lord dominates the person who is not our first city, but a big man in the city behind, deliberately put him in the first. It's just a city, the strength is far above us. If you go to the epiphysial master, if you lose, but it is nothing, if you win, you will automatically drive the position of the epiphysis to dominate the urban master. At that time, the big man behind the bone will inevitably remember to hate you. The words said by the Mu Chong Chong came from the lungs, and he said these because Jian Wushuang had just fought with him at the last moment, and he gave up his life. Wu Jianshou raised his eyebrows and asked with a smile, is this bone paw dominated? Is it strong? Shi Muchong Shinjun replied, much stronger than me. Wu Jianshuang heard the words and smiled, but did not reply, but reached out, patted the shoulder of Mu Chong Shinjun, and strode towards the first city and the last temple. This time when I came to Xingkong Ancient Road, Jian Wushuang's mentality was aimed at fighting against the strong one. How could Mu Chongshan's words make him retreat? In the deepest part of the first city, a huge and magnificent palace is towering. This temple is much larger than other temples, and when viewed from a distance, it makes people feel a sense of surrender. It is emblazoned above the temple with the huge word, bone bone, which is where the number 1 bone dominates. Bone Lord dominates. I hope it won't disappoint me. Jian Wushuang murmured to himself, then raised his head and looked at the huge hall. A light flashed in his eyes. The next moment, Jian Wushuang strode toward this huge temple. Behind him, those who were defeated by Jian Wushuang looked at each other one after another, then followed behind Jian Wushuang, a dark piece, walking towards the front. Seeing this, Mu Chongshan bit his teeth and stepped into the flow of people. At the same time, on a stone tablet outside the first city, the 4 characters of Mu Chong that dominated at that moment were flashed by the golden light and disappeared immediately. Instead, it is the word blood sword. First city, second place, blood sword. Second place. Blood sword is second. Isn't even Mu Chong the master, the opponent of the blood sword? Blood sword, about to reach the top of the first city. At this moment, countless people uproared outside the gate of the first city. Mu Chong dominates the second place in the first city and has never wavered. For almost 10,000 years, no one has been his opponent, and it is the Tianjiao who is said to have the most potential in the first city. However, today this Tianjiao was defeated by a younger, dominated by only the 5th level master. This is a rise of Tianjiao. I dare to be sure, among the seats in the last 8 cities, there must be a seat in the blood sword in the future. Although the blood sword is modified to only the 5th level, but his combat power, in my opinion, even the strongest among the top masters, even the ultimate masters that are almost invincible, will not fall behind. If the blood sword ultimately dominates the realm, I am afraid that they can fight against those top evildoers in the universe, right? At this moment, countless people looked at the stone monument with the glittering word blood sword, enthusiastic and fascinated by it. In just one day, they watched Jian Wushuang openly, from the last one step at a time, to the second place in today's first city. They have seen many people who successfully break through the first city and enter the second city, but like Jian Wushuang, starting from the last one, they have been challenging all the way to the second. They have not seen it for a while. Dominate the repair with the 5th level, this step is unprecedented. Big Husband is like this. The ultimate master sighed. You said, will the blood sword continue to challenge the skeletal master to complete the grand slam of the first city? Or will it pass the skeletal master and go directly to the second city? In my opinion, relying on the character of the blood sword, I am afraid that I will choose to climb to the first city. You must know, what kind of feat is it to climb to the first city with a 5th-ranked series? It's hard to say that Bone Masters were not the people in our first city from the beginning. They were just big men in the last 8 cities. They were specially placed in the first city. Their strength was far greater than the people in our first city. It's a long way off. If the blood sword meets him, even if he can win, he's afraid it won't be easy, and it will affect the way behind. Yeah, although I really want to see the blood sword reach the first city, but from the perspective of my heart, I hope that the blood sword can avoid the epiphyseal. Otherwise, if it is in the first city and the epiphysis is dominated, if the blood sword wears out too much, it will undoubtedly be very bad for the next few cities. Yes, the blood sword is destined to belong to the last few cities, and you should not waste too much energy time in the first city. At this moment, countless people are looking forward to, and a little worried, looking at the blood sword ranking on the stele. What they don't know is that at the moment in the first city, Jian Wushuang has already reached the main capital of the first city. This temple is more magnificent than other temples. It is full of scarlet lanterns, and looks a little dark in the desolate and gloomy first city. WWW Blood Sword came to teach. Jian Wushuang thinned, Yushu stood up, gently took off the wooden sign hanging on the city's main house, and said lightly, "It is good." A hoarse voice came out from the city's main mansion. Creak creak. Soon afterwards, I saw the gate of the city's main government slowly opening, making a stale old sound. Walking in the endless darkness in the city's mansion, an old man with a skinny blood robe holding his waist, stepped out of the city's mansion step by step. There was a cold breath, and then it emanated from him. Bone Puppet Master. Bone Blast Lord. The ultimate masters behind Wu Jianhui's twins had their eyes fixed. The zygomatic bone dominates. In the first city, it is definitely a nightmare. There are almost no city breakers who will challenge the zygomatic dominate. Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, and the bone dominated looked much stronger than those he had met before. A cold wind blew through, blowing on the blood robes of the main body of the epiphyseal body, exposing the dry, dark skin, and his voice was hoarse and said, "Right sword, right? The old man knows you. You killed the old man at the entrance of Shinkong Ancient Road. Your 2 masters." Wu Jinsho heard the words, but did not mean to deny it, nodded slightly and said, "Yes." Chapter 42:12. Second more. This is not a big deal. It seems that the old man will not embarrass you if you have a good talent. Unfortunately, if I read correctly, Blood Sword, are you from the Temple of Life? The epiphysis dominated the low road. Wu Jinshuang heard the words, and his pupils contracted for a while. The Temple of Life is different from other top forces in the universe. It is more like a big family, bringing together the special creatures that are wandering in the universe. These special creatures do not have exactly the same clothing and the same practice methods. Everyone has a unique way of practicing, which is completely different from the top forces such as the Immortal Kingdom of God or the Ancient Holy Place. Therefore, people who come out of the Temple of Life are rarely recognized as coming from. After Wu Jinshuang stepped into the starry sky, he did not show a special atmosphere of souls. He was in control of nearly 1,000 powerful people. Among them were many knowledgeable people, but none of them recognized his identity. People who can quickly recognize me as a shrine of life. I'm just afraid of the whole universe, and only people in Diwu Temple. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes and faintly replied, "How is it? How is it not? If it isn't, the old man wouldn't mind making a good destiny with someone like you who has good talents. The Bone Master dominated here, and the words came to a halt. Next moment, there was a sudden burst of een on his skinny face. If you are from the Temple of Life, then I am sorry, today you will die in this first city. Blood Sword, don't think of sophistry, the old man is a disciple under the Black Eagle Supreme Seat of Diwu Temple, and there is no possibility to read it wrong. Old man, today, I will kill the future confidant for Diwu Temple. Go to hell. Boom. He did not wait for Jian Wushuang to speak. He stepped on his foot, 5 thin fingers, carrying infinite coldness, and took a hard shot towards Jian Wushuang. Diwu Temple? Black Hawk Supreme? Wu Jian Wushuang heard the words, and there was a flash of intense killing in his eyes. Du Shrine, Black Hawk Extreme. He can't be more familiar. At that time, he was faced with life and death in the Jiui starfield. The Black Eagle Supreme of the Diwu Temple recognized him as a special creature and wanted to take the opportunity to kill him. To rescue him, I'm afraid he is now dead in the hands of the Supreme Black Hawk. He will never forget this life and death. I watched the scourge dominated by the storm. Jian Wu's eyes were extremely cold, and he sneered, "You have made a mistake." Ha! The guilty Bone Lord who heard the ransack heard Wen Yan's footsteps, and a touch of ridicule appeared on his face, teasing, "What did the old man say wrong?" Qi Jian Wushuang raised his head, his eyes slowly condensed on the face dominated by the epiphysis. Next moment, a low laughter sounded. "You don't understand, it's not my blood sword, but you that are going to die today." Boom! Suddenly, Jian Wushuang held the Wu weapon sword and severely chopped it to the Bone Master. The power generated by this sword is far more than the one that defeated Mu Chongshan before. A terror of mighty power erupted, stirring up the surrounding air, and the white waves turned upside down. Howling, howling, howling. At this moment, a sound similar to the cry of the demon and the voice of the Buddha groaning came from the Wu weeping sword. Ha! Finally, the Wu crying Excalibur with no hands in the sword and the bone claw dominated the palm like a dry claw, collided fiercely. A huge shock wave exploded immediately from the intersection between the two, and the land around it was 10 inches flat. No. The aftermath of the fight between these two men is terrifying. Immediately, some of the ultimate masters watching the battle behind Jian Wushuang retreated back one after another. Jane Mu Chongshan was shocked in his heart. He thought that Jian Wushuang, even though it was strong, was not much stronger than him, but after seeing Jian Wushuang, he suddenly understood in his heart. The gap between Jian Wushuang and him is completely an insurmountable nature gap. Rumble. Wu Yuba gradually dissipated, everyone quickly looked up and saw a thin figure, suddenly shot backwards, hit the ground severely. That figure is really the master of the bones. Qi Jian Wushuang stood in place, with black hair flying all over his eyes, and his eyes flashed to the extreme. On this soft power, who can you kill? Jian Wushuang's eyebrows were cold, his chin was raised, and he looked down at the skeletal dome that was falling far away. Kikik. The cheekbones dominated and climbed from the ground, looking hard at Jian Wushuang. His face was extremely furious. This sun obviously dominates the 5th level. How can it be so powerful? Blood sword. I waited for him to stand up completely. Ha! Qi Jian Wushuang's expression was indifferent. Once again, the sword was cut, and the sharp and icy sword-ons directly crushed the epiphysis. Bone, who gives you confidence and dare to say kill me? A deep sword mark suddenly appeared on the body dominated by the cheekbones. He raised his head and looked at Jian Wushuang stubbornly. Taiching said, "Blood sword, who are you?" News about the Temple of Life. The Bone Lord dominates the person of Diwu Temple, and is also a personal disciple under the seat of Supreme Shadow, and naturally understands a lot. According to his understanding, the Palace of Life is in the level of dominance, and there are not many strong ones. He can really take the shots. He thinks that he can defeat him. Yi Ku. The man in front of him is totally different from the description of King Juyao. Who will this person be? Kill you? You can't take the king of the 9 robbers, Jian Wushuang said lightly. The cheekbones dominated Wen Yen, and his face suddenly became cloudy. Blood Sword www. Novel. Do you think you really have a good chance of winning? The Bone Lord took a deep breath and said suddenly, show your strongest strength directly. Jian Wushuang heard that there was no surprise on his face, which is capable of running through the universe and reaching the level of ultimate dominance. Which one has few tricks to suppress the bottom of the box? Good, Blood Sword, this is what you said, I hope you don't regret it. The cheekbones dominated his tongue and licked his chapped lips, with a cruel light in his eyes. The next moment, he reached out his hand tremblingly and slowly concluded, Forbidden, Bone Demon. Boom! Suddenly, the bone marrow dominated the already dry body, as if the last drop of blood had been drained, and the blood color began to fade away quickly. The vast divine power in him began to burn at a horrible speed. There was a crack in his back. There are more and more cracks in his body. More and more. Immediately afterwards, a shocking scene took place. I saw a sharp, black bone spur that pierced him. In just a few short breaths, the leader of the epiphysis changed from a dried-up old man to a monster with a spur full of bones bent over his body. Chapter 42:13. The first is more. This is Bone Demon. No, Blood Sword is dangerous. For a moment, those ultimate masters behind Jian Wushuang exclaimed. Oh! Wu Jianshou raised his eyebrows, and there was a touch of wonder in his eyes. He could feel that after using the forbidden technique, the Bone Lord had turned his breath more than a few times. This is a good move, Jian Wushuang said lightly. Blood Sword, look now, who thee is going to die. A wave of terror, like gold and iron rubbing, unlike human beings, emanated from the mouth of the epiphysis. The next moment he stepped on his foot, and the whole person disappeared instantly. He could only see where he stood before, and a huge sound boom came out. Immediately afterwards, he appeared instantly above Jianshou's sword, 5 fingers turned into sharp bone spurs, and he grabbed at Jianshou severely. This grab is many times stronger than before, just like the 5 black piercing tears in the sky, grabbing towards Jian Wushuang's head fiercely. Wu Jian's eyes were cold, and he hacked out a sword to block it. Suddenly, the skeletal master grabbed 5 fingers and grabbed on Wu Weapon's Excalibur, immediately sparking a long series of sparks. Wu Jianshou snorted coldly, turned over with his right hand, and the divine power broke out in his hand, and he severed and flew the bones. Blood Sword, useless, you can't kill me. The cheekbone lord dominated with a wild laugh, but it was a flip on the ground, stood up from the ground and scathed, and killed the sword again. I saw that bone dominated the place where Jian Wushuang split and flew, leaving only a shallow white mark. I want to know that although the sword Wushuang did not really use up his magic power, the sword Wushuang's Wu Crying Excalibur has the ultimate power of the law. Blood Sword. Do you think the greatest improvement of the old man after using this forbidden skill is the divine power? Cheekbones Master Zhang Kuang laughed and said to himself, you are wrong. The oldest promotion of the husband is that unbeatable defense. The cheekbones dominated and laughed confidently. He believed that no one could kill him except the ultimate masters in the universe. Is it? Ji Jian asked without a double-sided expressionless face. After using the band technique, this bone cricket master is indeed very difficult to deal with. If he is still the 4th rank master and does not need those killing tricks, it is estimated that it will really be immortal at 130. But now, after breaking through the 5th level domination, the sword's unparalleled strength is enhanced, not just a little bit. From beginning to end, the magical power used by Jian Wushuang is less than 2 Chengdu, not to mention his 3rd most successful source of kendo, the laws of the universe that reach the peak, and the many killing moves that are enough to kill the invincible ultimate master. You must know that those killing moves are the source of Jian Wushuang's rule over the world. Blood Sword, now I am invincible. The cheekbones dominated his head, shouting with laughter, his voice turned into waves of horror, and some weaker ultimate masters hurried back. In his opinion, today's sword Wushuang has run out of means. Qian donkey skills are poor. Invincible? You are still really blind and confident. Jian Wushuang's expression was light, his right hand was turned over, and Wu Wei's Excalibur was retracted. Huh? Abandon the sword? Haha, blood sword, are you going to confess to losing? The skeletal master saw this, and the face was dark and skinny, with a sharp spur on his forehead, and there was an instant of pleasure. The next moment, he lowered his head sharply, his eyes flashing with murderous light. Blood sword, now that you confess defeat, it's time for me. Spur go! He screamed, and suddenly, all of his bone spurs were rotated and fired, like a javelin with a strong force, containing a terrifying divine power, and violently blasted towards the sword Wushuang. Magnificent, cover the sky. Unstoppable. Suddenly, those masters behind Jianhui's body suddenly couldn't help but take a breath and exclaimed, This bone spur, even each one has reached the level of inferiority. This bone spur, if it is a single one, may be nothing, but together at this moment is enough to kill the top ultimate master. The strength dominated by the epiphysis does not belong to the first city at all. I've heard before that the bone marrow dominated the fifth city. He was sent to the first city only because of the big man behind him. Now it seems that this rumor is not false. Hey, if it wasn't for this bone cricket master, relying on the strength of the blood sword, it would be possible to crush anyone in the first city and reach the top. Unfortunately, the blood sword met a person who did not belong to the first city at all. Everyone was discussing quickly, while looking at Jian Wushuang. In their opinion, Jian Wushuang's practice of abandoning the sword is obviously to know that he can't break the defense dominated by the epiphysis and is ready to admit defeat. In a gaze, Jian Wushuang's expression was calm, and he suddenly asked, Do you know how to deal with a clamoring bug? As soon as this remark came to an end, everyone in the room was filled with doubt. What does mean? I did not wait for them to speak, and saw Jian Wushuang's body, a strong and mysterious atmosphere of the extreme universe of law, burst out. They swear that in this life, they have never felt such a strong atmosphere of the law of the universe. The sword had no expression on both sides, and continued to speak. Huh? The words are not finished yet. Under the blessing of the law of the universe, the sword unparalleled stepped out, and the whole person instantly turned into a residual image, which was like a ghost, and directly avoided the thousands of black bones, in a flash, appeared in front of the master of the epiphysis. The sword has no double-sided expression, and his right hand protrudes like lightning, grasping the throat to control the throat. With this grasp, the speed is extremely fast. Under the blessing of the laws of the universe, it is full of obscure and mysterious feelings. The bone crust dominates under this grasp, and it seems as if it is silly and cannot move at all. It's a bug, just pinch it. The next moment, Jian Wushuang's right hand grabbed the throat dominated by the epiphysis and lifted it up sharply. And Jian Wushuang's unfinished sentence only then came to an end. All of this is coming to an extreme, almost completed in the electric light flint. In an instant, the audience turned into a dead silence. Everyone was stunned. Tuck 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 tuck. The dark and thick bone spurs only then hit the place where Jian Wushuang stood before. How could this be? Blood sword, how strong is it? Countless people looked at each other, shocked in shock. They didn't expect that it was just an instant that the situation had changed dramatically. Chapter 42:14. The second is even more. Dominated by bones and bones, he was lifted up by the 5 fingers of Jianshou Shuang, and only felt the 5 fingers of Jianshou Shou, just like the 5 mountains of the world, holding his throat. No matter how he struggled and roared, he could not move at all. Why? How could it become stronger so much at once? The bone crest dominated the expression. Kill you, why should I use a sword? Wu Jianshi's expression was indifferent. Among the 5 fingers, The majestic divine power and the sharp and sharp sword that broke the sky broke out at the same time. Immediately, the skeletal body dominated the deities as if smashed hundreds of times by a sledgehammer, and they continued to tremble. A crack appeared on his dry, dark skin. He claimed to be invincible defense, was broken. Do not. Suddenly, Bone Master looked at the crack and suddenly shouted in horror. At this moment he felt the threat of death for the first time. The sword of Wushan was left unheard of. Between the 5 fingers, the cold sword meant to be a snake swimming, and it was constantly bursting out in the body of the god of the bones. Ha! Ha! 1 crack, 2 cracks, 3 cracks. For a short time, the bone crust dominated the dry skin, and it was instantly covered with cracks like spiderwebs. His bearing point reached the limit at this moment. To last, farewell to the world, rest assured, your master will come down with you shortly. Wu Jianshou grasped the neck of the bone crotch master, brought him up to himself, and whispered in his ear. Immediately, the sword had no magic power and sword in his hands, and it broke out again. Ka wipe ka wipe. Suddenly, the epiphysis dominates the body of the god, and then in a loud noise, the epiphysis dominates the body violently. Shinkong Ancient Road, the first city, the first person to dominate the bones, die. The audience was dead. At this moment, everyone is holding their breath, looking at Jian Wushuang with a kind of awe of eyes. I reached the top. Everyone knows that from now on, the first city has changed. From now on, the blood sword will replace the bone lord and become the lord of the first city. The crowd was quiet for a few moments, and then they boiled. Blood sword lord. Blood sword lord. Blood sword city lord. Countless people yelled. Their voices were enthusiastic. For a moment, the word blood sword was boiling against the sky, and the sound of terror was rising. Countless ultimate masters, staring wildly at the back of Jian Wushuang. Legend. For them, Jian Wushuang dominated the strength with the 5th rank. From the last person in the first city, he lost 999 opponents in a row, and finally the decisive action of slaying the Bone Master was a legend. And how lucky they are to witness the legend. In a frantic gaze, Jian Wushou stood with his hands on his back, his expression indifferent, as if he had done only a trivial matter. It's all gone. Wu Jianshou shook his head and went straight to the main city of the first city. There, the handwriting on the wooden sign engraved with the word disappeared and replaced with the word blood sword. Wu Jianshou hung a wooden sign, and in the awe of everyone's eyes, stepped into the main city hall step by step. At the same time, outside the gate of the first city, countless people are attentively watching the rankings on the steel, their eyes are afraid to blink. At this moment, there was no sound outside the city gate. Everyone was thinking to see if the blood sword could create a miracle. After a short while, the ranking on the steel flickered with golden light. Come here. Rankings are starting to change. Blood sword really challenged the skeletal master, but I don't know if he will challenge success. Countless people stared at it. The atmosphere did not dare to breathe. Finally, Jin Guang gradually dispersed. First city, first place, blood sword. Boom! Suddenly, the crowd was boiling. Number 1. Blood sword reached number 1 in number 1 city. Miracle! Blood sword really defeated Bone Master. Ah, I knew that the blood sword would defeat the bone sword. You still do NT believe it and I was right, right? I just do NT know if the blood sword will continue to go on, or stay in the first city like the bone sword. Dominate among them. I am more and more determined now, that blood sword, in the ancient road of the sky, the future must be a big man like Tianlong, maybe it will also fight with the top Tianjiao in the universe. Countless people or exclaimed, or laughed and discussed. Suddenly, those in the Sanzhou Alliance saw this scene, and immediately felt uncomfortable like eating a fly, and quietly backed away. At the moment, in the main city of the first city, Wu Jian sat cross-legged, sitting on a futon, with a strong regular atmosphere, like a sea of water rushing towards him. The farther the starry sky is, the farther back you go, the stronger the rules will be. Therefore, it also creates a stronger and stronger weaker scene. Wu Jianwu opened his eyes, and there was a flash of thought in his eyes. For him, whether it is the bone-dominated or not, or the first city, it is just an episode of him in the ancient road of Shinkong. His eyes have never been placed on the first city. Therefore, when other ultimate masters saw Jian Wushuang top the first, all kinds of excitement and enthusiasm, Jian Wushuang's own heart, but there is no slight wave. The strength of this first city is not worth mentioning, but I don't know what the strength will look like in the next city level. Yan Jian's eyes flickered for a while, and now his strength, if only relying on divine power, should be the ultimate dominating top level. And if you add the law of the universe and the power of Kendo, Jian Wushuang can easily kill the top ultimate master. For example, the bone dominated just now, and the strength is at the top level of the ultimate domination. If you add Kai Tian, Xingxing, talents and so on, etc., Jian Wushuang confident, you can kill the invincible ultimate master. The ultimate masters of this kind of invincibility, such as the Jinan king and the three princes who were in the ruins of Tailuo. At the beginning, the sword unparalleled means were exhausted, and Yong Yi Jian was the only way to slay these invincible ultimate masters, but after breaking through the fifth level domination, the sword was defeated, and Jian Wushuang was confident. The king of the south, the three princes, and others, even if they don't rely on Yong Yi in Tailuo Jiandian, he can kill them. As for the use of such powerful magical powers as Yong Yi, Jian Wushuang is confident, and he is truly invincible like Zhuojia Wang, and even the ultimate master with supreme combat power, he is confident that he can fight without defeat. What's more, if his strong heart urges Tai Luo divine sword, how powerful can it be? Jian Wushuang himself is also unknown. Time passed slowly. Jian Wushuang did not stay in the first city for a long time. After the exhausted spirit recovered, Jian Wushuang quietly left the first city and walked towards the second city. The first city is just an appetizer. The real strong people have already reached the depths of the ancient sky. After Jian Jianwusu looked back at the first city, took a deep breath, and without hesitation, left the first city in a big step. Chapter 42:15. The first is more. While Jian Wushuang became the first city master. The eighth city, inside a magnificent palace. A few candles were inserted in the hall of the temple, and the dim candle light swayed, which illuminated the hall very gloomily. A demon youth wearing mopping robes and black hair scattered casually, sitting on a large chair with a relaxed attitude. Beneath him, the two top ultimate masters, bending and trembling, were kneeling at his feet like servants. Master, the guy with the bones is dead. The servant on the left said cautiously. Oh, who killed? The demon youth raised an eyebrow. Master, this black light mirror records the scene when the skeletal guy was killed. The servant lowered his head, moved his knees, carefully handed in a black light mirror, and said, Okay. The demon youth nodded his head, took the Shuangguang mirror, looked down, and saw what was playing in it. He was dominated by the skeleton, and was pinched to death by Jian Wushuang. After a while, the evil young man's long fingers clipped at will, and the piece of mystic mirror was immediately torn apart. It's really a waste, not even a fifth-level master is an opponent. The demon youth dismissed a cold hum and raised his head, his eyes flashing with thought. This person is called a blood sword. Bak tuk tuk tuk. Hitting his fingers, he beat on the armrest of the chair quite rhythmically. The two servants did not dare to breathe when they saw this. After a while, the young demon looked down at the two top ultimate masters kneeling in front of him, and said lightly, You two, now go to the fifth city to intercept the blood sword. If you say and bring him back, you two you do and have to come back, understand? When the two servants heard the words, their hearts shuddered. Yes, master. The two servants responded quickly, and then resigned with respect. After waiting for the two servants to leave, the eerie hall seemed even colder. The demon youth shook his head, leaned back against the big chair, and slowly closed his eyes. At the same time, in the distant temple of life, the mist was faint, a pot of warm spirit tea was burning on a stone table, the Supreme of the Blood Wave and the Great Axe sat opposite each other, talking and laughing. After the tea is boiled thoroughly. Huge Axe, come and taste, but this tea was specially commissioned by the old man to remove it from the first tea tree in the universe. It has the effect of concentrating and refreshing the mind. Bloodwave Supreme rolled up his sleeves and poured tea while laughing rode. The giant Axe Supreme heard the words and let go of his lips. He was not very interested in drinking tea, but only felt slowly and wasted time. Murmur. The giant Axe lifts up the teacup, swallows jujube, and drinks a cup of tea buffalo directly into the belly. Seeing this, Sun Xiebwa shook his head with a smile and shook his head, but he didn't care. He and Zhu Xian had been friends for many years and knew his temperament. He held up the teacup, sipped the cup of Lingling tea, smiled and said, "Huge Axe, have you been concerned about the news from Xingkong Ancient Road recently?" "What's the news?" Supreme Axe raised his eyebrows and asked. He Xuanxue heard the words, raised his palm with a smile, and said, 3 days ago, I received a message from a friend on the Xingkong Ancient Road, and a great event happened to King Jiujia. What's the big deal? There was a cloud of doubt in the eyes of Supreme Axe. Could it be that King Nine Calamity had an accident? But looking at the appearance of blood waves, it doesn't look like something happened to King Jiujia. Sun Xiebwa Supreme smiled slightly, and then said, King of the Nine Calamities, killing Dingguang Supreme. What? The King of Nine Kings killed the Dingguang Supreme? The Great Axe heard a surprise. Lu Dingguang Supreme, he has heard that there is not much strength, it is the bottom of the Supreme Realm, but that is also a real Supreme. It's extremely difficult to kill. A Supreme Fall is an earth-shattering event for the entire universe. The King of Nine Calamities stepped into the Supreme Realm shortly before, and was able to slay the Supreme Master of the same order? Is this news surely true? The giant axe slightly did not dare to channel. Sun Xiebwa nodded his head and smiled. This thing has already spread on the Supreme Starry Road, and naturally there will be no falsehood. After a moment of pause, Bloodwave Supreme laughed bitterly, seeming to laugh at himself, but also reassuringly said, the perfect level of souls is really extraordinary, thinking that when I first broke through the Supreme Realm, but closed only in the Chaos Era can he completely control his transformed Supreme Deity. Bloodwave, we such Supreme relying on asceticism, of course, it is impossible to compare them with those Tianjiao in terms of talent. Axe Supreme smiled heartily, and then the words turned and said, this time, the King of Nine Calamities, it is very likely that they can go with us to the universal cosmic event. Su Xiebwa Supreme said and said, as long as King Nine Calamity did not fall on the Supreme Star Road, the chance of attending the cosmic event of the universe should be great. After a pause, Bloodwave Supreme sighed sighing and looked up and said, count down the time, Jian Wushuang, the little guy, should have entered the ancient sky, but I don't know how he is. After all, when it comes to the degree of fierce danger, the master the competition in Xingkong Ancient Road is much bigger than that of Supreme Xingkong Ancient Road. I know, you are worried about Jian Wushuang. Bloodwave Supreme smiled with a smile, and then continued, relax, Jian Wushuang's kid has always been clever, so we don't have to worry about it. It's also Bloodwave Supreme smiled a little, and then said, after the Nine Calamities beheaded and killed Dingguang Supreme, I look forward to more and more. What will Jian Wushuang look like after breaking through Supreme? I want to come, it should be similar to the King of Nine Calamities. The giant axe replied. Sun Xiebwa Supreme heard the smile and shook his head without a reply. Only in his heart knows that the sword is unparalleled, but the special creature of super-perfect creature. If Jian Wushuang breaks through the Supreme, I am afraid that it will be more powerful than the current King of Nine Calamities. Right? The years go by and the time goes by. Blinks his eyes and time passes. I dominate the Xingkong Ancient Road, the fifth city, and the gate. The void suddenly twisted, and then a young man in black and black robe, wearing a hood and carrying a mahogany sword box, stepped out of the void into the fifth city. Next to this young man, there was a chubby monk in a yellow robe. Blood sword, this is the fifth city. The chubby monk in the yellow robe laughed. Okay. The dark-haired young man nodded, and looked around, seeing the bustling scene of this fifth city. Fengshi, restaurants, and everything. Many powerful men who ultimately dominate the realm hurriedly rub shoulders on the street. Pass by. For this person, he is a sword unparalleled after a armor. Chapter 42:16. Second more. In the time of Ijiazi, Jian Wushuang broke through the 4 cities, reached the top in the 4 cities, and finally reached the 5th city. In terms of overall strength, the monks in the first 4 cities are indeed stronger than one city. Not much for Jian Wushuang, there is not much difference. The enemies encountered are often under a sword. The battle was solved, and occasionally when it was difficult to encounter, Jian Wushuang's note of Kaitian was cut, and no one could stop it. This monk, the chubby monk, named Hao Ember, was met by Jian Wushuang in the 3rd city. At that time, the Hao Ember was facing the siege of many powerful men. This thing that shouldn't have been Guan Jinshuang, but it was a coincidence that this group of people just blocked Jian Wushuang's way. Under the hands of Jian Wushuang, they killed all the strong ones, and the monk in yellow robe saw it. Immediately hugged Jian Wushuang's thigh. He refused to give up. Jian Wushuang saw this and took it with him. Is this the 5th city? The sword is unparalleled, and there is no surprise on his face. Starting from the 2nd city, there is no limit on the number of stars and ancient roads. Therefore, it has also caused a lot of ultimate masters who cannot continue to move backwards, hoarding in one city. Go in. Wu Jianshou shook his head, converged, and walked towards the street step by step. Soon Hao Emperor quickly followed to follow, step by step behind Jian Wushuang. On the side of the road, many ultimate masters looked at Xiang Jian Wushuang. They first tapped, and then their eyes flickered continuously, as if they were thinking about something. Blood sword, in this 5th city, the strongest person today is the Prince of the Yin and Yang. Hao Ember dominated in the eyes of those ultimate masters on the side of the road, appearing somewhat restrained and carefully introduced. Yin Yang Shenjun? Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows and looked at Hao Ember with great interest and said, "Keep talking." "Okay." Hao Emperor nodded his head and replied, "Blood sword, I don't know much about the Yin and Yang gods, but I heard that the Yin and Yang gods have a mysterious origin, unprecedented strength, originally not the 5th city people, but suddenly came deeper from the ancient road to the 5th city. After the advent of the 5th city, the Yin and Yang gods killed the original owner of the 5th city in only 3 ways and became the master of the 5th city now." I said here, Hao Emperor dominated for a while, seeming to remember something, and patted his head and said, "Yes, there is one more thing. I almost forgot to say that this Yin and Yang is not alone." "Not alone?" Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, wondering, "What do you mean?" "Yes, these Yin and Yang gods are Yin and Yang respectively. They are both the ultimate masters and the top-level strong men. The methods they practice are the same, and they have a high understanding of the power of the Yin and Yang. Together, it is said that even those near-invincible masters will feel tricky." Hao Emperor said eloquently, "It's kind of interesting." Wu Jinshuang replied casually, but his gaze looked elsewhere. He could feel that after he stepped into the 5th city, the people in the 5th city looked a little strangely at him. That feeling is like a wolf that has been hungry for a long time and finally waits for a lamb at the door. Although the people in this 5th city tried to conceal the greed and cruelty in their eyes, Jian Wushuang had already seen too much of this kind of eyes and naturally saw them through at a glance. Wu Jinshuang frowned, suppressed his thoughts, and continued to move forward. In a restaurant next to Miu Road, by the window. Look, is that 5th-ranked master in black robes the one who is rewarded by Lord God? An ultimate master, his gaze was arbitrarily glanced on the royal road, but after seeing Jian Wushuang he suddenly felt a shock and said quickly, "Is that Lord God, the one who rewards 1,000,000 universe sources?" Suddenly, all the people in the restaurant quickly crowded over and looked at Jian Wushuang. "The 5th level is repaired, the back sword box. Can't be wrong, this person must be the Lord God, the person who offers the reward. Go, Hurry up and let the news of this person appear to inform Lord. Don't let others take the lead. They took a deep breath, suppressed their excitement, and hurried towards the city's main government. For a while, a conversation similar to that in a restaurant was staged around the fifth city. And Jian Wushuang still do not know that he has become the target of public criticism, but only subconsciously the more frowns and tightened. This fifth city is weird. Jian Wushuang narrowed his eyes. He could see that as he continued to penetrate the fifth city, many ultimate masters on the roadside, after glancing at him, swept away towards the same place. Blood sword, they look at us with something wrong. At this time, the master of How Ember also found that the atmosphere was a bit wrong and swallowed. Did we provoke which big man? No, we have just entered the fifth city, and we haven't spoken to others. How can we provoke others? How Ember dominated a little doubt. Wu Jinshuang heard the words, and suddenly seemed to remember something. His eyes narrowed. Provoked? If you say who he provokes, then there is only one person. That's the epicenter of the first city. At this moment, a sudden dull footsteps came from the earth. Alas! Immediately, Jian Wushuang saw a team of armed axe, wearing black armor, wearing a helmet with a white-skinned black armor guard, expressionless. Come towards him. They stood one step ahead of Jian Wushuang. One of the leading black armor guards first glanced at Jian Wushuang's face, and then took out a black light mirror from his waist, which seemed to be confirming his identity. Finally, the leading black armor guard retracted the Shuangguang mirror and asked without expression, "Are you a blood sword?" "It's me." Jian Wushuang nodded calmly. "Blood sword, Lord God, please come with us." He Jiawai said blankly. As soon as the chanting voice fell, Jian Wushuang didn't say anything, but How Ember, who was behind Jian Wushuang, was a spirit and asked quickly, "This lord, dare to ask Lord God, what is it about us? Huh? For you?" The leading black armor looked up and down at How Ember, frowning, and said, "It's none of your business, just step back aside." Master How Ember also wanted to say that Jian Wushuang reached out his hand, preventing How Ember from speaking. He looked at the black armor slightly and said calmly, "Take me." The black-armored man nodded when he saw this, and smiled lightly. "Let's go, Lord God, I've been waiting for you for a long time." Chapter 42:17. The first is more. Wu Jianshou followed behind the armor guard and walked away, but a sneer sneered in his heart. Well, I just hope that the yin and yang can be stronger. If a few swords are hacked to death, how boring. The fifth city is much wider than the previous cities. Jian Wushuang followed this team of black armor guards and walked for nearly 3 times, before walking to the main city where the yin and yang was. This city's main building is as tall as a city wall, with huge yin and yang pictures painted on the gates, full of meaning and strong rules. Blood sword, we have just come to this fifth city, and have never dealt with the of yin and yang. You said, what did the of yin and yang look for us? How Emperor followed behind Jian Wu and swallowed. I don't know. Jian Wushuang shook his head. Although he speculated in his heart that this yin and yang should be dominated by the skeletal corpse that was killed by him, it was not known until he actually met. Blood sword, I don't know why, I always have a bad feeling. How Emperor whispered. Oh, what's not a good hunch? Jian Wushuang heard it and asked indifferently. I don't know how to tell you, but you also know that to me and other levels, there is more or less a sense of what is going to happen. I always feel that the yin and yang is uneasy to find us. How Ember said with a sigh, shaking his head. After he said that, his eyes murmured and he said, Blood sword. I think otherwise. Let's run away before we enter the city's main house yet? Wu Jinshuang heard the words and smiled back. How Ember, you have concerns in my heart that I can understand, so you still don't want to go in as for me. Alas. Wu Jianwushuang reached out his hand and pressed it against the gate of yin and yang, pushing it away. He sneered. As for me, let's see what kind of ghost trick this yin and yang is playing. The heavy door was slowly opened. A beam of light shot through the crack in the door. Blood sword, Lord Shenjun is waiting for you inside, please go in. The black armor guard stood in front of the door, stretched out his hand, and said blankly, "Please." At the same time, the team of black armor guards looming, cutting off the sword's back road. Wu Jianwushuang nodded his head and stepped into the main city hall. Seeing this, the master however suddenly struggled and hesitated. "I am now seen by fools. The gods of yin and yang are absolutely conceived. I am afraid that it is easy to enter the city's main house, but it is difficult to come out." When seeing the figure of Jian Wushuang going further and further away, and soon to disappear in the city's mansion, the master however finally bit his teeth and shouted, "Blood sword, wait for me." After saying this, he saw the black armor on both sides look cold and expressionless, exhaled deeply, ran out of his legs and ran towards Jian Wushuang. There are rockery pavilions and flying stone pavilions in the main city of Tanqing City, but it is a dead silence. In this dead silence atmosphere, it seems a bit depressed. Qi Jianwushu glanced at the dominated Hao Ember, raised his eyebrow and asked, "Hao Ember, how did you keep up?" The master of Hao Ember held his chest up. He replied with a smile, "I can only save my life. If I retreat now, wouldn't it seem that I'm too outrageous? It's okay, God of yin and yang came to me, it's not your business at all." Jian Wushuang smiled, seeing Hao Emperor dominated with a firm expression, and stopped saying anything. After a while, the two passed through a corridor, and then a dark hall appeared before them. I saw two old men wearing yin and yang robes, sitting in the middle of the hall. Needless to say, these two old men are naturally yin and yang gods. The two old men exploded with red hair, red eyes, fiery fierce breath all over their bodies, and a few sparks scattered around their robes and horns. Another person was wearing a black robe, and his breath was as thick as water. Between his eyes, there was a faint blue sage flashing. These two men are like two servants kneeling at the foot of the demon youth in the 8th city. However, at this moment, the two servants are in the shape of a great change at the foot of the demon youth. They are sitting on the hall with contemptuous glances at the sword unparalleled. "You are the blood sword?" Yin Shenjun sitting on the right asked. "It's me." Sword Wusho stood with his hands on his back, and he humbled and said, "Two gods, what's wrong with me? What are you looking for? You don't know for yourself?" The prince of the Yang was fierce, and he suddenly hummed when he heard it. Immediately, an overbearing and hot breath, as if forming a substance, came to oppress the sword Wushuang. The Hao Ember who stood behind Jian Wu's body saw the situation, and his heart sank immediately. This is to give Blood Sword a disappointment. Originally, he was still wondering if he could find a chance to be good. Now, looking at the appearance of this yin and yang god, he may not be good. Jian Wushuang saw this, and a slight sneer evoked in the corner of his mouth. "Your Majesty? Huh?" Suddenly, Jian Wushuang's third primary source of sword intention broke out, and a sword intention that tore the heaven and earth suddenly rose into the sky. Once the sword came out, it directly crushed all the breath of the Yang Shenjun oppression, and then patted it towards the Yin Yang Shenjun like the tide of the sea. Bold. Presumptuous. Suddenly, the Yin and Yang gods both stared at each other with anger on their faces. Finally, the ripping sword came crashing into the sky. Yin Yang Shenjun quickly drew up his divine power and reached out to spread the sword. Wu Jian saw this and he didn't care about it. This sword was originally issued by him at random. He didn't even think about killing them. After patting the sword, the Yin and Yang gods looked at Xiang Jianwushuang. His eyes flashed to the extreme. "Blood sword, the old man is too lazy to go around with you, I ask you, but you killed the Bone Lord?" Yin Yang Shenjun looked cold and said at the same time, "What? Blood sword killed the Bone Lord?" As the man in the 3rd city, he naturally experienced the 1st city. Therefore, he also knows the identity of the skeletal master. But in the back city, a big man deliberately planted in the 1st city. Suddenly, Hao Ember dominated. He looked up at the Yin and Yang god, fearing that the two men, who are also the big man, arranged to intercept the sword unparalleled. "I killed it." Jian Wushuang stood on his back, faintly returned. He acted frankly throughout his life. He was dominated by the bone skeletal, he killed and killed, naturally he would not deny it. Okay, the old man likes you who are straightforward people, blood sword, not to mention that the old man doesn't give you a chance. You can decide for yourself now, we can do it in the province, and you can die easily. Yen said, his eyes flashed and he smiled coldly. Chapter 42:18. Second more. Self-determination. Wu Jinshuang heard the words, as if he had heard a funny joke, and couldn't help laughing loudly. Next moment, Qi Jian Wushuang smiled, and looked at the yin and yang gods, scornfully. What are you two? Do you deserve to let me decide? The words came to an end, and the yin and yang gods were suddenly overshadowed. Stunning! Blood sword, you it? Shouted yin and yang. Then, with a wave of their hands, they yelled, Black armor, kill me! Rumble. Suddenly, they saw the two teams wearing the black helmets and holding the ultimate master of the long axe, taking a neat pace from outside the main hall and rushing quickly. Kill! Dull voice from the black armor guard composed of these two teams dominated. When the two of the yin and yang gods saw this, the corners of their mouths suddenly aroused a smirk. Blood sword, we wanted to give you a chance to make your own decision. As a result, if you don't cherish it, you will blame us for being merciless. Blood sword, don't blame us. If you blame it, blame you for killing the waste in the bones and annoying our master. After speaking, the yin and yang closed his eyes and stopped looking. Everyone in this team of black armor is the ultimate dominator. For a total of 24 people, even if the two of them join forces, they will feel headaches. They don't think that Jian Wushuang can survive the strangulation of these two teams of black armor guards. Suddenly, the two teams of black armor leaped at the same time. The divine power gathered in the hands of the axe, fiercely chopped towards the sword unparalleled. 24 axe lights flicker, and the hall shines brightly. No. Blood sword retreats. Master Hao Ember's face changed greatly and he shouted, Back! Wu Jianshou sneered, a flash of coldness flashed in his eyes. Native chicken tile dog. Huh! With the sound of a sword, Wu Weiss Excalibur came out instantly. I saw Jian Wushuang's right hand flipped, and the whole Bodis blood-stained Wu weapon sword suddenly appeared in Jian Wu's hands. Immediately after that, Jian Wushuang's sword crossed the sky, and the third strength power of Kendo's origin broke out. The 24 white axe lights suddenly split on the Wu weapon sword, and 24 loud sounds broke out. Wu Jinshuang only felt a sink in his hands. The 24 black armored guards' joint hit was really extraordinary. Even if he now relies on divine power, he feels a little hard. Is this the strength of Fifth City? Yen Jian's eyes flickered. The Fifth City was indeed much stronger than the previous cities. Even if it was just the strength of a black armored guard, it could be called the top 100. Unfortunately, if this strength wants to kill me, that's not enough. The next moment, Jian Wushuang sneered, and more than 12,000 times his power suddenly burst out, and he picked up fiercely. Karub! A flash of sword light flashed. Suddenly, the 24 black armored guards' chi retreated backwards, and the body of the shook wildly. There was a crack in the black axe. Kill! 24 black armor guards looked at each other, and the faces covered by the helmet showed only a pair of eyes, flashing the color of determination. 24 Heijiawai, once again killing Swordsman. Blood sword, it'll help you. Seeing this, the master of Hao Ember suddenly bit his teeth and a long knife appeared in his hand, killing the 24 Heijiawai. However, Hao Ember can't control the strength of the third city. How can he be the opponent of this black armor? He was only swept away by that axe, but he was blocked for 3 breaths, and he was forced to retreat by an axe. Jian Wushuang saw this and shook his head with a smile. Immediately, Jian Wu's eyes twisted, looking at the black leap guard that leaped at him at the same time, and his eyebrows gradually cooled. Endless, isn't it? Next moment, Wu Jian's fingers crossed the blade of Wu Weapon's Excalibur, and he whispered, Open heaven. Suddenly, the Wu crying sword in his hand heard the cry of God and demon, and the Buddha groaned. A sharp fengrui reached the extreme Jianmeng, condensed on the Wu weapon sword. A wave of mighty power destroyed the sky, and it radiated from the blade. Cut! Wu Jianchuang twisted his eyebrows, lifted his right hand holding Wu weapon sword, and then chopped down fiercely towards the 24 Heijiawai. Rumble! With a bang, this Jian Mang was chopped on the 24 black armor guards. At this moment, the sword power of the sword is more than 12,000 times, and the third strength kendo original power is no longer half-pressed, and all erupt. Huh! I saw that as the natural disaster of the end came, the whole hall was torn apart instantly, and the thick eaves were lifted directly, raising countless dust. Suddenly, the 24 black armor guards were smashed. First, the black axe in their hands, crushed inch by the sword, and then saw the treasure armor of the 24 black armor guards, blasting a crack, and finally during the explosion, the armored company took them 24 people, all turning into powder. I slaughter 24 ultimate masters with one sword. Beneath this sword, 24 Heijiao died. None of them survived. Hit this sword, the whole city is a sensation. Fifth city, whether it was pacing on the imperial road, or retreating in secret at this moment, all looked up and looked at the location of the city's main government. What happened? Hurry up, there are battle fluctuations in the main city. Who fights in the city's mansion? Is someone going to challenge the yin and yang god? This person is so good at kendo. For a while countless people moved by the wind, striding towards the city's main mansion. In the main city of Tanqing, Rao made it protected by the rules of the ancient road in the sky, but also turned into a ruin. Countless fumes filled the sky, and in a piece of wall debris, Jian Wushuang's black hair flew up, holding the sword's combat power. Behind him, Hao Ember dominated his and slumped on the ground, frightened by Jian Wushuang's sword. My life-saving benefactor is too powerful, isn't it? Hao Emperor dominated his tongue in shock. From beginning to end, he followed behind Jian Wushuang, and when Jian Wushuang defeated his enemies, he looked like a cloud of lightness, so he never thought about how strong Jian Wushuang would be. Where did I think that Jian Wushuang's shot was so shocking? Blood sword, we underestimated your strength. The bones died in your hands, and it is not wrong to die. A breeze blew past, taking away the dust. The duo Yin Yang and Shenzhen's faces were extremely gloomy, and they said, originally, the demon youth ordered them to come and kill Jian Wushuang. They only thought it was a beautiful errand. It was the main thing to come out and relax. It was only incidental. However, the sword that was unparalleled by the sword just made them understand. This blood sword is afraid that it is more difficult to deal with than its own imagination. Chapter 42:19. The first is more. There is so much nonsense. Qi Jianwushuang's expression was calm, and he looked at the yin and yang slightly. The next moment, the sword was swaying without a figure, killing the yin and yang god. Arrogant. The yin and yang gods looked at each other, then drank at the same time. Supernatural power, Yanlong. Supernatural power, miles of frost. In an instant, the area where Jian Wushuang was located first, the temperature plummeted, and the force of the icy cold to the extreme dropped, and numerous broken arms and ruins became ice sculptures. Under this icy cold power, all speeds have slowed down, and the sword unparalleled Wu Weeping Sword has thin frost. Also, this frost continued to extend upwards along the blade of Wu Weapon Sword, and seemed to freeze the sword Wushuang. Wu Jian's pupils shrunk slightly, and he could feel that under the power of this cold, his whole body of boiling spirits began to become slow and dull. And this doesn't stop. The magical power in the hand of Jaina Yang was stirred by his hands. Numerous divine powers condensed and turned into a huge dragon that can swallow the sun. Go with. Shenyang Shenzhen's head was flying with red hair, and he pushed forward hard, and then, the huge Yanlong flowing with magma suddenly made a roar that shook 9 days and 10 places, and Zhang Yao's claws came towards the sword without biting. The two major killing moves issued by the god of yin and yang, and at the same time killing the swordsman. Even though it was Jian Wushuang, when he saw the two major killing moves, his face was a little dignified. After the yin and yang gods had done all of this, they suddenly carried their hands and looked at each other with a pride on their faces. Imagine that the two were the ultimate masters in the universe before being conquered by the demon youth, and they were the giants of the 8th city. They are confident. With their two hands together, it is not a problem to win a 5th rank in Sword Warriors. Howling! Howling! The magma dragon that was transformed by the savage divine power of the god of the sun was entangled in the sky, and a huge heat wave spewed out of its breath, burning the void. Above the earth, it was turned into a glacier of thousands of miles, and the land under the swordless feet was covered with frost. The broken walls and fragments were transformed into huge ice sculptures. The whole world seemed to be transformed into an ice and snow world. The primal power of the rule realized by the two princes of yin and yang, one extremely yin and one extremely yang. At the moment, they are working together to change the world, and the horror is extremely extreme. Wu Jianwushuang held the Wu weapon sword and stepped into the void, as if sinking into the world of ice and fire. His expression became a little serious. It is indeed a strong man coming out of the back city, and it is much stronger than the master of the first 5 cities. Jianwushuang muttered to himself. This ancient starry sky is indeed the place where all the powerful dominators in the entire universe gather. The ultimate dominator in it is not only a great number, but also a quality higher than the outside world by several grades. If this yin and yang is placed outside, it is absolutely supreme, which is enough to dominate the existence of a party in the dominating realm. As a result, in this ancient sky, it has become a servant of others, and even the last 8 cities where the true strongman has not entered. Qi Jianwushuang has long heard that Xingkong Ancient Road 18 cities, and the 10th city as the watershed, the real strong, those who dominate the abnormal existence, Tianjiao evil, are fighting in the latter 8 cities. Converged his thoughts, Jianwushuang faintly looked at the yin and yang gods and said, "This yin and yang rule is good. If you grow up later, you may hit the threshold of thinking about the kingdom of God." The yin and yang gods stood with their hands in their hands. When they heard the words, they raised their eyelids and looked scornfully at Jianwushuang. They said, "Blood sword, you have a little eyesight. Since you understand the strength of the husband and wife, please be good. Hold your hands and follow us to see the master. If you please the master, maybe the master is in a good mood and reads that you can be a slave and spare your life if your talent is acceptable." As soon as the words came to an end, Hao Ember, who had long been stunned by the yin and yang gods, was dominated and suddenly looked at Jianwushuang with anticipation. He hoped that Jianwushuang could trust the master behind this yin and yang god. Think about it, the yin and yang gods alone are so powerful, so how terrible are the masters behind them? The good birds choose wood and live, and the wise men choose the master. For the ancient road of the sky, it is a very normal thing for the weak to attach to the strong. After all, there are strong men everywhere in this ancient starry sky, and the killing is extremely cruel and brutal. If you can attach to a strong man, you will find yourself a strong backing. What's more, if the strong person that he is dependent on can fortunately stand out from the ancient sky and get the qualification to participate in the cosmopolitan event, then as a dependent person, he can naturally rise to the sky and go to the cosmos grand event. It can be said that, apart from those who are extremely confident in their own strength, or those who have stepped on the peak of the universe's dominance, other people, more or less, will choose the strong to attach. He is like, for example, the master of Hao Ember. Isn't it equivalent to the sword attached to the sword? Finally, in the eyes expected by the master of Hao Ember, Jianwushuang sighed suddenly and said, "Yin Yang Shenjun, do you not want me to self-discipline, or you want me to be the slave of your master? You treat my blood sword as who is it? What kind of person?" The yin and yang gods heard the words and laughed suddenly. Blood sword, is it because you don't understand the principle of the weak to surrender the strong? Smile. Yin Yang Shenjun's face was cold and hummed coldly, "Blood sword, don't know how to deal with it, this is the last chance given to you by your husband. In this life, you must understand and grasp the opportunity, otherwise the opportunity once you miss it, you won't come again, you know?" Wu Jinshuang heard the words, too lazy to say anything, and sneered, "Stupid." The sound of the words fell to the ground. The sword Wushuang did not hesitate again, and he stepped hard, and he would condense into the ice floor, step out of a large pit, and his body blasted out like a cannonball, looting towards the two gods Yin and Yang. "You ungrateful animal." The Yin and Yang gods snorted, "Yen Long, go. Miles are frozen, up." Boom! Immediately, the magma Yanlong, who was entangled in the sky, at first opened his mouth and roared, spit out the breath of the giant Martian dragon, and then his tail flickered, biting towards the sword unparalleled. Wu Jian's eyes were cold, and the majestic divine power was infused into the Wu weeping sword. The sword of Kaidon was cut again, and he severely slashed at the magma Yanlong. Ha! Under Jian Wushuang, the ice peaks as thick as the mountains stood up, with the power of cold terror, stabbed towards Jian Wushuang's body severely. "Get away!" Wu Jian's eyes rose sharply by 3 inches, and he sighed coldly, and his right foot stepped directly toward this ice peak. For a while, Jian Wushuang defeated both Yin and Yang at the same time with 1 enemy and 2. Chapter 42:20. Second more. Ha! I saw a weeping blood on the Wu weapon sword, and severely slashed on the head of the magma dragon. Rumble! A thunderous explosion exploded. Roar! I saw the Yanlong screaming in pain, and on its skull, a deep sword mark spread from the head to the tail, as if to cut this magma Yanlong in half. Beneath this sword, this magma dragon, condensed from divine power and the rules of Yin and Yang, shrunk by half, and countless divine powers were worn away. Ha! And the huge ice peak that came towards Jian Wushuang was directly crushed by Jian Wushuang's 1 step. Directly break the 2 major killing moves of the Yin and Yang gods. This boy. Seeing the Yin and Yang gods, the pupils suddenly shrank, and his face was a bit ugly. However, this scene also fell into the eyes of many Fifth City masters who were coming to watch the war from all directions. Their rushing footsteps suddenly stagnate, and their bodies startled. Actually, there really is someone fighting against Lord Shinjun. Isn't this person the one who was rewarded by Lord God? This person is so strong. Obviously only the 5th grade dominates the repair, but the 2 of them can fight at the same time without falling into the wind. They looked up at Jian Wushuang one after another. Their breathing was a little rapid. "Yin and Yang Shinjun, you 2 have this strength. How confident are you? Can you say that you want me to arbitrarily? Dare to say that you want me to be a slave to you?" Jian Wushuang looked coldly, looking at the 2 men of Yin and Yang. The Yin and Yang gods heard the words. Their faces were extremely gloomy, and they looked at each other. The fierce-tempered Yang gods immediately said, "Blood sword, you must be proud." After finishing speaking, Yin Shenjun's expression became dignified again. "Yang Shenjun, don't keep your hands, be careful to capsize in the gutter." Although Shenyang Shenjun has a fierce temperament, he is not a brainless person. He nodded and heard Shenyan said, "Yin Shenjun, then use that trick directly to suppress this kid." "Okay." Yin Shenjun nodded. Immediately, the atmosphere of the 2 gods, Yin and Yang, skyrocketed. The power of the 2 laws of Yin and Yang is rising, and they are constantly intertwined in the air, but they gradually merge together. The Yin and Yang rules realized by the 2 people are originally from the same root and complement each other. At this moment, they are fused together without any hindrance. I saw that after the 2 rules were merged together, it was gradually practiced and turned into a Yin and Yang pattern that swept the world. This Yin and Yang pattern covers the sky, and a horrible power, like the grinding disk that annihilates the sky and the earth, will shatter the air of nothingness. Oh! Jian Jianhui's eyes narrowed for a moment, and there was a strange color on his face. No wonder the Bone Lord dominates and the Yin and Yang are the servants of the big man in the back city, but the Bone Lord dominated and was directly inserted into the first city. The strength between the 2 is really too different. Blood sword die. The next moment, the Yin and Yang gods burst into drink at the same time. Suddenly, This yin and yang array was pressed fiercely towards Jian Wushuang. The mighty might suppress the quartet. If placed outside, it would be enough to destroy a star directly. This is the trump card of Yin-Yang Shenjun. Yin-Yang Shenjun is indeed a strong man from the back city, is much stronger than us. For a moment, those Fifth City strongmen who came from all directions to watch the crowd shook their heads and marveled. Blood's sword, hold on. He was dominated by Hao Ember and looked at this scene stubbornly. The atmosphere did not dare to pant, and a heart fell into his throat. In the void, Jian Wushuang's eyes were cold and his black hair fluttered. He looked at the huge yin and yang pattern rolling towards him like a big sun, exhaling deeply, and spit out 2 words, cut, star. Huh! Suddenly, the turbulent wind in the air, the floating dust, everything, turned into the purest energy, rushing towards the sword without hands. Not only that, including those who dominate the distance, the weapons in their hands seemed to be pulled, and in their appalling eyes, they unconsciously converged towards the sword without hands. Magnificent, cover the sky. Finally, everything, all infused into the sword without hands, turns into a silver sword rainbow with a length of 100 feet. This sword began when Jian Wushuang first realized it in the first battle with Jiu Jie Wang in the Life Shrine Proving Ground. After Jian Wushuang broke through the ultimate of the 5th, reached the level of Deshang. This sword is enough to destroy the stars. This sword is enough to split the galaxy. The next moment, the sword held Baizhang Jianhong without hands, black hair fluttered, and his eyes skyrocketed by 3 inches. Choose. Boom. Immediately, this silver sword rainbow split. When you hit this sword, the weather waves are split directly, and the heavens and the earth under the sword are split in half. Instantly, this 100-foot-long silver sword rainbow collided fiercely with the crushed yin and yang sword picture. Like a knife-cut tofu, on this yin and yang map, it was directly split into 500 feet. He's like a chaotic knight torn by lightning. This yin and yang sword is instantly shattered. Take this sword, destroy it, destroy everything. Domineering to the extreme. What? Suddenly, the yin and yang gods were trembling, and the anger in their eyes turned into fear. And the silver sword rainbow, after splitting the yin and yang array, just a slight meal, and then split again towards the yin and yang god. Escape! Yin and yang gods see this, want a crack? Turn your head and go away. Can you escape? Wu Jian's eyebrows are cold, and he holds the silver sword rainbow in his hand, as if the gods were born. Talent of supernatural powers, primitive universe. Qi Jian Wushuang said coldly. Suddenly, an intangible field came to the audience, and the distant footsteps of Yin and Yang Shenjun suddenly slowed down. And the silver sword rainbow, finally cut off. The thief is so daring? The old man's master is Tianxi Langjun. The yin and yang gods are horrified, the whole body is surging, want to resist. However, everything is useless in the face of absolute power. First of all is the violent Yang Shenjun. Under this sword, the body is covered with cracks like broken glass. Immediately afterwards, Yang Shenjun's body collapsed instantly, and countless divine powers were crushed under the silver sword rainbow into powder. Seeing this scene, the god of Yin suddenly turned pale and pale. Boom! Immediately afterwards, the silver sword rainbow of Yang Shenjun was beheaded and killed again on Yin Shenjun. I saw that the body of Yin Shenjun began to disintegrate at a speed visible to the naked eye, and countless divine powers were worn away. This life is off. The Yin sighed and gave up the struggle. I was just when my whole body was about to be completely crushed and my life was hanging. Suddenly, the silver sword rainbow suddenly dissipated. They are tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.